I always start the show with good evening, even though it's 3 o'clock for me. But it is good evening in Tea and Crumpets land,
It
right?
is.
Yeah,
Indeed, yeah.
yeah. All right, so evening chat gang. I'm here with Ian from JustSaying podcast, and you actually own your own like full on gaming store now, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Just play games in Liverpool in the UK.
In the UK. Is like so I kind of like have admired you from afar for a little while now. Um,
Mhm.
Going all the way back to like a little bit before Night Haunt release on TGA forums is where I think I first remember talking to you.
Yeah.
And I remember one conversation in particular when Grimghast Reapers came out and we were running the numbers on those guys versus like Graveguard and just like Skeleton Warriors. Like
Yeah,
Skeleton
yeah.
Warriors came out with buffs. They're at 1.1 damage from all. Just I remember that whole conversation, and then like randomly running into you on Twitter kind of a little bit later, and just like kind of picking up, and so basically what I'm saying is I think this rantcast has been a long time coming since even before a rantcast was a thing, and so I'm really
Yeah.
excited to have you on, man. So thanks for reaching out when I hit like the picnic button there.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for having me on.
All right, so I just so I the first thing I want to start kind of talk about tonight, is like you took a hiatus from your podcast, which I think is one of the quite simply I think it's one of the best in the world. With you and Richie, and I resisted my urge to do the accent, but uh, Ian and I'm Ian and I'm Richie, like boom,
That was
nailed
a
it.
good, that was a good Scottish accent. That would do really well. Way further north than me.
If I were doing us people. All right. Yeah. But like you guys have a really good podcast. You come at it from a pretty, like a pretty like a pretty hard nosed, straightforward manner. I think your information is really, it's just really quality information for anyone who's trying to like figure this game out. Uh, Helping assess quality. Like of just like war scrolls, especially as like the tomes are coming out as the meta's developing and stuff like that. And then you kind of like you took a little step back from it for a little while, and I'll let you talk a little bit about that, and then I'm gonna talk. I I talked to you in like DMs there, and one of the things you were feeling kind of resonated with me too. So I'll let you talk a little bit about that and your journey to bringing just saying back.
Yeah, so I mean, when we started the podcast, I was I'd not long both me and Richie had not long started playing Age of Sigmar really. We'd both played lots of competitive games in the past, like a long time ago. And we both decided that, Age of Sigmar was something worth playing. It seemed to have a good community. So we just thought we'd give it a go, and we just sort of naturally fell into having a go at podcasting, just for something to do, talk about a game that we were both passionate about, and we're both pretty good gamers. We know our stuff. We're good at sort of like assessing books and things like that. So I guess it just sort of worked out for the community at the time, and plus the fact I think there weren't a lot of people doing like competitive podcasts that were like really focused like that. A lot of them were like hobby podcasts or mixed podcasts or general podcasts, etc. So I think it just it had a good niche at the time when we started it. Really.
Yeah, I mean, there's like I've got my regional guys I go to, especially when a tome comes out. But when like ever a tome will come out, you guys were like one of the go tos. Where like I know I'm gonna get like like a lot of time for me, it's like a little bit of like I think I know where I'm at with this thing, and then like hear what Ian and Richie have to say about it, and then boom, okay, like I'm locked in on what my own opinion type thing. So it was really like that sort of like go to expert opinion for me a lot from like a competitive standpoint. And I do think most players are like some blend of hobby, narrative, like and competitive. And when I say narrative, I don't necessarily mean like you play open games. I mean you think about your army's
Oh yeah,
story.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, you have a model that you really love, and so you're going to fit it into every list because you love that model. Things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, like one of the funny things, I guess, about doing a podcast that was like focused on sort of like competitive play was for a long time. I think most people thought that both me and Richie like didn't care about anything else. like that we didn't care about hobby, that we thought that painting was a load of rubbish, you know, like, and all this kind of stuff. And it was like so far from the truth. Like Richie's massively into painting.
Yeah,
I'm trying to get into painting. You know,
yeah,
like it's not something that I naturally enjoy, but I appreciate like putting hard work in to do something well. You know, but ultimately, like if we weren't into models and cool models and that kind of stuff, we'd be playing chess or Magic or something completely different. And you know, the reason we play it is because it's cool and it's a fun game and all that kind of stuff. So I think people took a lot of the early stuff the wrong way. Like, you know, we were trying to distill the game down into only one thing, but you know, that was a bit of a sort of journey being new to the community, especially when so many people in the UK have been playing this game for such a long time as well.
right. Yeah, I mean, and people didn't really like you're kind of developing your point of view as you're talking through these episodes, and people are only getting the one angle. You know, if they
Yeah,
just listen to just playing that those for especially like those first few months, they only get the one angle. You're talking about like you talked a lot about like soft scores at the time, and it wasn't like throw the baby out with the bathwater soft scores. It was like we need to not game the system. That was like a big point for you guys. Is
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
is
exactly.
is like we don't want you gaming soft scores, and you know, and that's the thing is if you make it part of the game, then there's going to be a way to game it. If you put a good model in the game, it stands to reason that people are going to play with a good model. If you put a way to like exploit soft scores, not that everyone does it. If you have that possibility, then somebody's going to use it, right? And that was a little bit more of it, not like oh let's throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let's never have these other trophies. Not that was never the take, but it could come across that way. I think if you just
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
if you caught one episode and then like you never listened to the rest of it to sort of see how your relationship and how you with the game came at it from actually multiple different angles. Like I remember, like you know Richie his Fire Slayers. He's really excited about his Fire Slayers. His Sylvaneth has won some hobby awards too, hasn't it? Like
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's you know he's a good, very good like classical style Games Workshop painter. You
mm-hmm.
know, he worked for Games Workshop, so he was brought up on that style of painting, and he's still painting that style now, which isn't always the most modern style of painting, but he's very accurate and precise, and you know he knows what he likes and that kind of stuff, and he puts the effort in as well,
Right,
which is you know harder when you've got two kids, which he's got now instead of just the one.
right.
But you know he's really into the hobby side of it, like as well
Well,
as much as anyone
well,
is.
yeah, yeah. So that actually segues into you have kids too, right?
Yeah, I've got two.
Two. Do you game with them? Because like I'm finding
Uh,
that like go on.
no, I've got a 7-year-old and a 2-year-old. So obviously 2-year-old too young. My 7-year-old's autistic diagnosed. So he's not quite got that like level of understanding of those kind of things yet. He will at some point, and he'll probably be super super good at games. I hope. I'm going to teach him, so I would hope so. But he doesn't quite grasp it yet. So I will definitely be playing games with them if they're
Yeah,
into that kind of thing, but not quite yet.
yeah. I mean, you got to ease them in. Like you got to ease him into it. Like my son Colin, he's 7, and like he's very hyper. You know, like he's kind of
Yeah,
hyperactive. So like he just kind of wants to play with them like they're GI Joes at this level, and so it's like he's
yeah,
not ready to like sit down and learn rules yet.
yeah,
You know, and so like I get that, but they've actually done studies on kids with autism or kids on the spectrum and tabletop gaming specifically, a lot of D&D and how it's like
yeah.
helps a lot with empathy and communication and so
Yes.
I mean there's a lot of good to be done with gaming. It's not we're not just nerds anymore. We're actually making the world better. Like,
Yeah, yeah, like gaming, you know, all those things like you just said, ASD spectrum and a whole host of different psychological disorders and social disorders and all sorts of stuff. It's really interesting stuff, all that. And yeah, you know, I'm sure that will help a lot when he gets to the point where he wants to pay attention to it more than his Switch.
right, right. Yeah, my son's all about Mario Kart on his DS right
Yeah,
now, just
yeah,
obsessed with it. So, yeah, I think that's cool how like we have a generation of gaming parents now kind of raising a generation of gaming kids. When I grew up gaming, it was just me and my family. Didn't have parents per se, but like my family just didn't get gaming. You know, like they didn't
yeah,
understand.
yeah.
You know, that was in the height of the tail end of the Satanic Panic for D&D. So like, I was worshiping the devil for playing Dungeons and Dragons. Like they didn't get it, and like we have a generation of parents now, like you, myself, Richie. Like we actually get gaming, and we understand it now the way like a previous generation. Yeah.
The thing that most excites me about that is, you know, when you look at like people who are retired right now and they say, oh, you know, I don't know what this is like in the US, but in the UK, there's a big thing about, you know, like older people being very lonely and not having anything to do, particularly when they're very elderly and maybe their partner's passed away, and people in retirement homes leading really dull lives and not having anything to do. I can't wait to retire. It's going to be fantastic. I'm going to raid on Warcraft for 18 hours a day, like, you know, in whatever the 78th expansion is. I'm going to like play every single Age of Sigmar army under the sun and practice all the time and go and beat 20-year-olds, because all I do is practice Sigmar all day. Like, retiring for gamer nerds like us who have hobbies that you can do at home without needing to go anywhere or whatever. It's fantastic. It's fantastic that there's more things like that. And, you know, I massively look forward to growing old and retiring and having all that free time to do all those things with.
See, I haven't really looked ahead to it, but I'm like, damn, that's a great point. Like, we also haven't had the full generation of retirees in gaming.
No, we've not. Can you imagine sitting in a retirement home, right? You would
LAN parties.
You would have no problem, getting like a raid together for WoW. You'd just find your 19 other elderly friends. You'd be like, guys, you want to just grind this mythic raid all day until we beat the boss? Like, who in the world is going to stand up to a bunch of people who've got nothing to do but do that all day?
I mean, that's part of the reason Euros are so much better than us at games in general, is because they already have extra free time. And, like, once you're retired, you quadruple that, so...
Yeah, it's amazing. It's going to be a great time.
Man, that's a fantastic take. I love that. I've never thought ahead to it like that. Like, okay, once I retire, I can game. It's been like about like raising my kid. And like, you're damn right. Like, it's just gonna be a D&D. You're gonna have like a lifetime. Like, the retirement home is just gonna be one big LAN party.
Yeah, you will have no problems like getting everyone to turn up for a game of D&D, because you'll all just be in the retirement home. You just wake up and play it for 14 hours until you fall asleep.
Oh, the dream.
Bringing your lunch, you won't even have to stand up. It'll be amazing.
You'll sit in a chair with wheels on it. Like, oh man, it'll be great.
It's gonna be the best. It's gonna be so good.
So that's awesome. So you talked about like you know, how you kind of came into the community. You had played games before though. Where did you jump into Warhammer? Were you one of the like old guard, played Warhammer Fantasy Battle, took a long break off, came back, or?
So, I mean, I've played Warhammer Games Workshop games since like 1993 or 1992. So, you know, I was playing them when I was like 10, 11 years old. But, you know, I played them for like a lot of years. I probably played them until about, I want to say like 2002, 2003. But, you know, I never went to tournaments. I never played them down the local store. We didn't have a local store in Liverpool ever until we opened one, really, anyway. So, you know, I never did any of that like stuff in the wider community. You know, I just played them at home with friends and everything. You know, when I started playing games and like going outside of Liverpool as I got older and traveling the world to play games, I was playing cards. So I was playing Magic, I was playing Legend of the Five Rings, you know, mostly those kind of things. So I actually got back into Wargaming after a 10-year break in like 2010. So I lived in Iceland, in Reykjavik, and I moved to London for work, and I didn't know anyone. So I thought, I'm going to just go down the local gaming store, I'm going to buy an army for whatever game people are playing, and then just go to a games club and meet people like that. Mm-hmm. So I bought War Machine, actually, and I started playing War Machine when I was in London, 2010-ish, and then I just sort of carried on playing tabletop games again from then, really.
That's pretty sweet. So when did you meet Richie, and when did JustPlay the store come about?
So me and Richie have been friends since we were probably about 16, 17, 18. Uh-huh. So we met playing Magic, you know, back in the days when you used to get together one day a week to sort of play Magic. We had a local store that, you know, like a lot of stores, was a card gaming store. and we met playing Magic really, and that was mostly that. We stayed friends. We've been best friends for 20 something years now. He was the best man at my wedding and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we've been friends for a long time. JustPlay came about. So, we'd started playing. So JustPlay's been going for 4 years, 3.5 years now. And we decided, me and Richie, that we were going to play some miniatures games together. So we were playing Beyond the Gates of Antares, which was a Warlord Games sci-fi game. And we were playing that together, and we started, basically, we put aside 1 day a week when I moved into this house and had a games room for Richie to come down and play games. And we started playing it, and, straight away we were both, like, trying to make the best armies we could. We were both like full-on gaming armies, like having really serious games because we've always been quite competitive, playing games and everything. And we one day I was just looking at property prices and various things, and I just called Richie and I said, Richie, should we just open a game shop? So we did. So 2 weeks later, we opened the game shop. That was the entire history of how it came about. I was bored and had a whim, and we decided to open a shop.
It's crazy because it's kind of like a little bit of like happenstance, but a little bit of passion, and like boom, you've just got, and like now there's a gaming store, and you're going on 4 years, which is, I mean, the lifeline or the life expectancy of like a new game store is usually about 1 year, so you've kind of like cleared that initial.
Yeah. Like, I mean, even though we did it very quickly, like most things we do, we did it properly. It was fully budgeted, it was fully planned. We had spreadsheets going on all over the place with what we were going to do. We ran it in our spare time originally, so it was like we still were both working our jobs, and we just opened like after 5 o'clock, and we just like split running the store. And we did that for like a year or 9 months until we figured it was actually viable, and we carried on from there. So we did it properly, and we did it probably. We planned it probably better than most people who spend more time planning their shops do.
Well, so, you nailed it right there, where you're like, we didn't do it full time in the early until we figured out we could do it full time. Mm-hmm. Like that already was, I think, more foresight than some others do when they jump into the game store business. So I got a question from Hawkeye here. Who's older, you or Richie? Or
Richie's 1 year older than me.
1 year older? Who's wiser, you or Richie?
I want to say Richie is probably wiser. I'm more prone to mood swings and whims, like opening game stores. And Richie's like a little bit more calm and collected.
That doesn't. That's funny. That doesn't mean he's wiser. He maybe just paces himself better. But yeah, man, that's awesome. I get that.
I wouldn't define either of us as wise, so that was the best I could do.
Thank you.
That was good. No, I'm a very passionate guy. Like all of my emotions, whether it's excitement or anger or happiness they all stay pretty close to the surface for me. So I'm very impulsive by nature too. So I get it. Not open a game store impulsive, but
yeah, well, it worked out fine.
Yeah, it did work out fine for y'all. No, it's pretty great. Thank you so much, Soren, by the way, for the 3 years of subscriptions and the donation there, buddy. So then you end up taking a sort of a small hiatus from doing the podcast itself. I know Richie sort of threw himself a little bit into the tournaments. Just me. I mean, stop me if I'm wrong, but this is me kind of gauging, watching Twitter activity and stuff. He kind of threw himself a little harder into the Twitter stuff. Obviously, he had a kid. Kids were involved and stuff like that. And then, well, let me talk a little bit about myself, and then maybe it relates a bit to how you felt. For me, when GHB 19 came out, which might go down as the worst GHB since they've done them for various reasons. Like when Nagash was no longer like viable, I felt a disconnect from the game, like personally, and so I struggled for months to like personally find my passion to like play Age of Sigmar again. And I know we had a really brief conversation kind of about that, how like if you don't like, yeah, you want to win and you're very competitive, but if you don't love the army too, then you just like you don't care. And was it that a little bit of a factor, or what was going on with that?
Like, so I'm Richie just carried on as normal. Like he wasn't particularly playing more tournaments. There just was a lot of tournaments at the time, and he just carried on going to them. I think he became like as he hit his stride. Where like Richie's a very good player, but you know he will always say he needs to play things a lot before he sort of soaks them in. You know, like, and then he gets very consistent, and obviously he had a very good season last season. He had a number of like almost winning events, but not quite finishes.
Mm-hmm.
So that was when he sort of, you know, got in the public eye a little bit more. Then he went and played Six Nations and that kind of stuff. But we podcasted the whole time. But really, I rarely quit playing in January last year when Flesh Eater Courts came out.
Oh, okay.
That was when it really stopped me. So Flesh Eater Courts came out, and then Skaven came out immediately afterwards.
Yeah.
And I go to a little bit more extreme than some people. Like some people will just go to tournaments regardless of the state of the game, whereas I'm very much of the opinion, which is a little bit extreme, just personality wise. I just don't want to play against armies like that where, you know, the conclusion is foregone.
Well, yeah.
You know, before anything starts, and I find armies like that to just take a lot away from the game for me. And at the time, they were both very oppressive,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and not very fun. So I backed off the game quite a lot. You know, I was still playing a little bit, but it was really that did it for me. And you know, I was bored with death as well because I'd played the book to death.
To death, right?
Well, and you know the sort of the other issue I had was, so I started playing Death March toward the end of last year with like quite a unique build. That, you know, I went 4-1 at Facehammer. I was in contention for the win at the one event I played it. And then the army got knocked off the top of a cabinet and destroyed, like physically destroyed. So, you know, the army that had interested me again and you know, after I'd got bored of playing the Gash and Grimgash Reapers,
yeah,
was gone, and I didn't want to get 15 Black Knights painted again. And then obviously we had the GHB on top of that, which also made Nagash useless as well. I was like, oh,
yeah.
I've got nothing that makes me want to play the game. I tried to play Slanesh, and that was the final nail in the coffin, and that was the point when we actually stopped. Because, you know, all through that period, I was like a pundit. I was still talking about the game. I was still very on top of it.
Yeah.
I just wasn't really playing too much.
Yeah.
But then when the Slanesh book come out, I started playing it, and I played it a few times, and it absolutely ruined the game for me because it was so dull to beat people in a way in which they never ever had a chance from the second I came to the table. I wasn't interested.
Well, see, there's actually some really go on, finish your point.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, that just finished it for me.
Yeah. I see some really interesting parallels there. So my daughter actually, like, I got back with my Nagash from a tournament, and she snapped him in half basically. And I wasn't mad at her. She's 3. She was just trying to be like daddy, you know, like there's nothing wrong with that. Dad was gone all weekend at this tournament with these models, and like, so she sat at the table and started playing with them, and she broke my Nagash. But I'm like, oh, here's this physical, visual metaphor of how I feel right now, like my broken Nagash. Yeah, so like there's that, but like no, with Flesh Eater Courts, part of the problem wasn't just that it was good or great. Things can be great, things can be good. The problem was, like you said, foregone conclusions. They had so many golden parachutes. You know, when you're outmatched on the table, you play the table, you play to your outs, right? Like sometimes just a list will beat you. It wasn't just that they beat you. It was like your decisions didn't matter. If they mucked it up, if they mucked it up and they deployed poorly, and you got it on the dragon first, it kills you anyway. Like it was just like, and
Slanesh is like that too. It's exactly the same. You know, they come in, they kill your keepers. You fluff all your rolls, fine. You get another try. Like no army in the game just says, "Oh yeah, let's just re-rack." Except we're carrying on from where we were. Yeah. And I'm going again. And like the thing I dislike about it as well as a player is I think one of the most important things about competition in Age of Sigmar particularly is that your skill defines how well you do. Mostly with most armies, more than anything, you see great players taking mediocre lists and doing well with them, and you see mediocre players taking great lists and never going better than 4-1 with them. And I like that about the game. Like, there is skill and decision making in it. But with Flesh Eater Courts and with Skaven and also with Slanesh, you see Midland players just smashing great players off the table in a way that they don't necessarily deserve, or the great player doesn't deserve to be beaten like that.
Mm-hmm.
And some people might think that sounds elitist or whatever, but I don't think that players who are outplaying their opponent massively deserve to lose just because, you know, the other guy's got a gun so big you're only fighting with a knife, you know.
Yeah, like there's certainly some disparity there, and in a game that's sort of overall been trending toward a lot more parity. You know, like Cities that's a fun book. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But like the game for the most part has been striving toward parity. And if you look at it right now, I have a much more positive outlook exactly now than I did like 6 months ago or whatever. Yeah, I get it. Slanesh is still around and yada yada yada. But that's like I can't spend all my time looking at the outliers in this game because I think for the most part the game does trend positive. Like looking at some of the war scrolls in the Ossiarch Bonereapers tome, I'm like, there is some really intelligent rules writing in there, some really good design. Like just like that, just like if I read like Legions of Nagash from, you know, just what a February ago, or, you know, 2 Februaries ago, so like a year and a half ago, I go, ugh, you know, like you know, so like they're getting better, right?
Yeah, the quality improvement. We said this in our cast a week or so ago. You know, the quality improvement in the last few books is marked. Like, you can see what a difference it is, and I mean, it's been going, like you say, in a positive direction for a long time. But a lot of people use that to say, well, you shouldn't criticize it if they're getting better. It's like, well, you know, you can still get better more quickly, and you can still be better than better, and you know, criticism isn't a bad thing, right? Like, sometimes in this community, I think any kind of criticism tends to get looked on negatively, which it's not. But yeah, you know, the opposite is the case right now. You know, they deserve to be applauded right now because they're writing some really cracking rules. Could it be better and have some less loopholes? Yes, of course it could. But their velocity is definitely trending in the right direction.
Well, yeah, I mean, even with like you know, like RantCast to like sort of self-assess here, I have episodes that I am less proud of than others, and so I hold myself personally accountable and to a certain standard for this show. Like, do I hit a home run every single episode? Absolutely not. And like, I don't expect a company to like hit a home run every single time, but like, you still want them to strive for it. And when they miss, you kind of feel, especially when you have like a voice, to be like, hey, you know, that wasn't okay, guys. Like, let's step it up. And I think
precisely.
Yeah, and I think one of the main things I've just recently learned is really more like how you frame your criticism is as important as the criticism, you know? So that's certainly something I've personally had to work on myself because I skew negative. I am not a positive guy. This happy-go-lucky Mephisto you all see on the RantCast every single day, it's not an act, but it is a deliberate attempt to heighten the better parts of myself. And so like I'm go on, yeah.
I'm the same. You know, I tend to, if I'm going to criticize something, I tend towards like being very, very blunt. I'm like, this is bad. Why did this rule get written? I can't believe this even made it past playtesting. It's just terrible. And that's just who I am. And I don't necessarily mean anything by that, really. Like, I'm not trying to be hurtful or insulting.
See, I thought it was just that British wit.
It is, but I mean, even within Britain, you know, like, I appreciate that comes across as abrasive and or certainly upsetting. I mean, I've been on the game developer side of the fence as well, and I know what it's like when everyone's just telling you that you've done a bad job. You know, like, and some of those people don't mean it. Some of those people are like, I don't like the job you did, but I appreciate the fact that you did it. That's sort of where I come from, but it doesn't come across like that because of the way I talk sometimes, I think. So I'm also trying to make a conscious effort to convey my points better, without accidentally coming across as more emotional than I actually am.
To be fair, hyperbole and being emotional is a lot of fun, and there is no greater human emotion than righteous indignation. And there's a lot of fun leading into that. Personally, it's practically what I base an entire show on. But, like, then you have to, like, walk it back a little bit and be like, okay, for those of you in the back, I'm just being myself, and, like, I don't really mean that, like... Yeah. Because I thought this book was terrible, we should throw, like, Molotov cocktails at a GW store. Like, that's not really what I'm saying when I say you should burn this book. Like,
Yeah,
so it's like, I get that.
Fine one.
I'm sorry, what was that?
It's a line, it's a fine one.
It is a fine one between being entertaining and being abrasive, right? Even though Joanna, thanks for joining us. So we got, like... Just saying, how then? So like we got the sort of defeat, like where you were still being a like a fixture and stuff like that, you felt like, hey, like I gotta go, I still gotta be just saying Ian, even though I'm not really playing the game, and you had that like moment. When was the time where you're like, okay, I just need a break? Like what was it?
Well, like didn't, I didn't want to quit the game, and I never intended quit the game permanently or anything. That was never on the cards for me, because I do really enjoy the game. And the local community we've got in Liverpool is great. The wider community and the people I've met going to tournaments is great as well. So I never wanted to stop altogether. There was just, it got to a point where I was so disinterested that it was difficult to podcast. But honestly, though, the main reason we stopped podcasting wasn't actually anything to do with me not playing. Mm-hmm. It was mostly just that we were both too busy.
Okay.
So we rarely, that was what actually made the decision. It was an easy decision to make because I was a little bit disinterested. Mm-hmm. But it was mostly just because of work reasons, really. I've just been hyper busy. And so is Richie to an extent as well. So that's nothing more sinister than that, really.
No. I wasn't implying anything like super sinister or anything like that. But now, like we've got the happy ending. I don't want to say it an ending because it's really more of a happy present. Now you're back. You guys have been cranking off episodes. Like I used to wait for my one every couple weeks, one a month. You're like, and I still haven't caught up completely on like the latest bonus, Cities episode. I'm halfway through the second Cities episode, but I stopped listening to that one to listen to the one about the meta. So like you've just been like rattling off content, and it's great from like a fan standpoint, because like you have those podcasts that always jump your queue, and your guys is it's like you guys, Cubic Shenanigans, and then Play and Slam, which are like the two local podcasts. Those ones always jump my queue, and then you guys, like it's right at the front. So nice. So I'm really pleased. But man, like you've come back with a vengeance, I feel. So I see. I just want to circle back to like one of the points, real quick before we move forward, which was you said like there was nothing really more sinister than you got busy, and I could see on Twitter like you still you bought Blades of Corn and you're getting into Blades of Corn and Slanesh, and like you were still making the effort to stay engaged and stuff even that whole time.
Yeah.
I mean, you were painting some weird ass tanks for a little bit, and like I don't understand tanks; those aren't swords or dragons.
I'm still on that. I'm still on that as well.
You're still on that as well. Yeah, I forgive you because you, like I said, you've been like unapologetically and rampantly releasing content now. So like, what was the spark? Was it did Cities draw you back in? I know you were a little lukewarm on Ossiarch Bonereapers, but it was my perception that you were a little lukewarm on Ossiarch Bonereapers initially until I heard the Bonereapers review, and where I'm like, okay, it's got the Ian stamp of approval.
Yeah, so we had the Just Series Grand Tournament, which was we do a twice a year. Well, it's only our second one, but twice a year 2-day event. And I was always going to be there for that, like to judge and to TO and all that kind of stuff. But really, it was just going to another event again, I guess. And because for anyone who watches Honest Wargamer, so that weekend Speckles was due to commentate with Rob, and he was ill, so he didn't turn up. So Rob needed a commentator, so I ended up commentating all weekend with Rob.
That had to be a fun dynamic.
Games. Yeah, and we were commentating about games with Ossiarch War Clans and Cities of Sigmar, both books I'd not read at that point because I was sort of out the game. And I just really got into it, got into the vibe, got into assessing armies and talking about what people are doing and tactics. And, there was some, I've been commentating on games for quite a long time, live, on stream and that kind of stuff.
There's nothing like it.
Yeah, I'm very comfortable with it anyway, but there was a lot of really lovely comments on the stream saying, oh, Ian's really great commentator. And just, you get that community love, don't you? And then it reinforces itself. And all the guys from Ireland were over, so I hung out with them. I hung out with Rob and Nathan. Hung out with the local guys who I haven't seen for a while. Some of the guys from Manchester were over. It was just, it was just that community vibe and the spirit and chatting about the game again. Got me excited. So that night we always have we go back to the store after the tournament on the Saturday night and we cook everyone food and give everyone beers and stuff. And we had one Cities of Sigmar book on the shelf, so I took it home with me and read it. And by the time I got there on the Sunday morning, I'd spent 4 hours reading the book in the night, and I was like, holy crap, I'm in. I'm doing it. This book's amazing. I'm making an army.
So basically, you got the double whammy of the community plus the passion back for an army, and now you're back full force. So that's really cool. When I had my little disconnect because the LON, I'm very similar in that I can't play an army I don't love, even if it means winning. And when the armies I love are garbage, I start to feel okay. My bro Haywo, he played BCR for years.
Way longer than anyone should have to.
And I'm just I could not do that with LON or Ossiarch. The wheel's going to keep turning. Ossiarch Bonereapers are right now. They're the hot new thing, and they're going to be pretty. I think they're going to be pretty good. More on that later. I don't think they're the second coming of Slaanesh, but they're gonna be able to compete for top tables on day 2. Good army, very well designed. But the wheel will keep turning. It might rotate to where they're not good. A point adjustment too far in one direction. People's taste is too sour on Petrifex Elite, so everything in the book goes up and ruins your Crematorian build. Something crazy happens down the line. Now they're on the out, and then I'm going to be back in the position where I'm, I've rotated to the side. I can't just switch to the new hot army and be passionate again. So I gotta have that I gotta have my passion for my army, but I still want to win. And I like innovating with it, but at some point, hopefully we are in this fat middle. And I think we are. This fat middle Vince Venturella talks about, where you've got a lot of 3 and 2 armies sort of attempting to go 4 and 1, and if you run hot and you pilot well, you can go 5 and 0 type thing against a bunch of other stuff. And then you got some outliers and some obvious tier 1 shit. Hopefully that's it. Hopefully that's where we're at. Hopefully that's going forward. But without the passion, I just And so the thing I latched onto when GHB 19 happened and I was already kind of feeling a little bit of a disconnect, was the community. I just full on latched onto the community like a life raft and just and that's what kept me personally going to tournaments and personally engaged because so much my identity is associated with the death factions and the death armies, and when they're not good, then I don't feel good, which is a me thing. It's not a GW thing. It's a me thing. So now you're back. You've been releasing content at a rapid pace, and are you defecting from the best alliance, the best Grand Alliance? Are you leaving Nagash to go join that fucking soul thief?
Well, I've always, my very first ever army in Fantasy, and although I'd never played that much Fantasy, really, but my very first army was Undead, and I think the 2nd edition Undead book is on the shelf over there behind me, probably still. The best Warhammer army book ever, vampires in the front rank of like a unit of 40 skeletons, like murdering things left, right, and center. You know, necromancers like summoning new units. You know, all the crazy stuff you did back then. Awesome magic items. Henrik Kemmler before he was just necromancer with hat.
Yeah,
You know,
necromancer with that.
there was so much cool stuff. And that was always, and I've always played undead in a lot of fantasy games. Like it's always been my thing. So the thing that got me into Age of Sigmar was when they released the Legions and the Gash book, and they became playable. Because, you know, like you say, you've got to, for me, I've got to love the faction, and it's got to be good.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be the best, but it's got to be.
You've got to have a shot.
It's got to be good, yeah. And also the other thing that I look for, which is the thing that's been lacking in Age of Sigmar books for a long time, is the ability to run multiple different armies from one book. And they went through this phase where, you know, they were releasing like Fire Slayers and Idoneth and those, and they just didn't have enough width of units in the armies for there ever to be really more than one build. And I think Death had that a little bit. Like, you know, there was a few builds in that book, but you know, they've been power crept out now. And then, you know, Bonereapers doesn't resonate with me whatsoever. The models. Like, the models are cool, but they're not the skeleton they're not the fantasy skeletons that I want to play with.
You want the classic skeletons, and I was, like, ready for, like I can always play my LON army, like, show me the weirdness that AOS is capable of, which is why I was on board from the beginning, is, like, I really like the, like, KO. Like, okay, we know what a dwarf is in classic fantasy. What's the weird dwarf in the fantasy game of a fantasy game, which is AOS.
Yeah. And, you know, I think Bonereapers are cool, and I think the lore behind Bonereapers is, like, fantastic. It's just that the miniatures haven't really grabbed me. The one miniature that did was the 4-armed guy, the Stalker. But, you know, and then the stats for them came out, and it was like, oh, right, yeah, never mind, forget that then.
AKA, we got a colloquial term we use in the Midwest here. We call him Blender Man.
Yeah, that's yeah. Also, the Immortus, the other thing built from that kit, the Immortus Guard or whatever they're called, just all that. So I go back a step. When that book got announced and they started spoiling stuff, I said to Richie, if the build for this book is just 90 skeletons and a big character, I'm not going to play it.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, the build for this, the only thing I was wrong about was the number of skeletons. They're just a bit more expensive. So, you know, the build for this book is, you know, 70 skeletons and a big character.
Yeah.
It's, like, I think, unfortunately, they've made the skeletons too good. They haven't made the other kits good enough. And, you know, there's only two builds in the book, really, for me. There's lots of catapults, or lots of skeletons, or something in between. That's all the book does. And I just think it's... as well as not inspiring me with the models, I think the book is a little bit one-dimensional competitively.
Chat's here just waiting for me to, like, end the call.
I think, don't get me wrong. I mean, I think there's, like I said in our Bonereapers review, they've done a really good job of making everything in the book, like, playable. You know, like, I think the horse guys are almost top-tier competitive. I think the Stalkers are very good. They're just not 100% competitive. Like, I would be pushed to ever say that skeletons or catapults or something in between wasn't just the best build. And therefore I wouldn't want to try and play a Stalker army in competitive play.
Well, so there's there's actually one point you made where, like, the best way to run this army is probably, sadly, 80 skeletons and a big character, which is the exact list in LON I was running. I was running 80 skeletons, 10 Black Knights, Legions of Nagash, a White King on Steed, and a Necromancer. The thing is that was my favorite thing in the world to run that army, and I would go 3 and 2, 4 and 1 pretty consistently. Like, I basically get to do that again for a little while longer. So you said it like it was a bad thing, and I think it's a great thing.
Yeah. It's just perspectives in it, and you know, like, I think the army's great. I think they've done a great job with the rules. The miniatures are fantastic, bar the tiny legs on the crawler. That's weird. But like the miniatures, like I think everything about it's great. It just hasn't quite grabbed me, and the depth of the book quite hasn't grabbed me either. So it's just not not quite doing it for me. And obviously, being on the back of Cities as well, which I'm just incredibly excited about. And knowing that also Seraphon are coming out next year sometime early, is the rumor.
We're hoping for it's in that Gloomspite Gits slot. Is what we're hoping for.
Maybe.
Right?
Yeah. So I guess basically I just don't need another army right now, and they're not not the death faction that I want to play.
It's okay. I forgive you, and I still love you. No, I didn't want to talk about OBR like right off the bat, but we're on the topic, so I got to bring it up. Like, I think like 2 catapults. The Ballistari battalion seems like just a fucking auto include, and that's like I hate when things are like auto includes, and where you're just like I keep building lists, and like even my meme list, which was like, okay, I'm gonna take all the cavalry.
Thank you.
Whoa, Merrick Wolf with a, am I reading that right? $100 donation. Thank you so much, man. Crazy. Wow. Cheers.
You should have me on more often.
Yeah, I should. That's so now we get to have a new crown is passed, which is highest donation record with $115 so far on RantCast. Jesus Christ. Thank you so much.
So I know.
Cheers. But no,
you don't mind me interrupting you.
No, go ahead.
I know you've just said you're worried you might have to end the call, but but just Hawkeye in chat is we're gonna not be friends anymore if you keep talking about Seraphon like that.
If you want, I can ban him from chat if he keeps teeing off on Seraphon.
Terrible person. We're not friends anymore.
Man, no, that's no. See, like Bonereapers, I really did. They really did resonate with me from for all the reasons. Like when people are like, oh, they're like this weird pseudo Asian vibe. I don't like that. I'm like, have you seen my Black Knights? They're literal samurai. Like every one of my skeletons is wearing a rice hat. Like I was so ready for this army and I didn't even know it. So it comes out, but like my meme list right now is a Cavalos Lance, and it's a 2-drop. No, it's 3-drop. A Cavalos Lance and Ballistari. 2 battalion list, and then just like a Bone Mason or something like that. I'm like. Like even when I'm memeing trying to make the big I'm gonna run all the cavalry list and be cute. I'm still taking two of these Mortek crawlers, which are just.
I know. I think I posted that list on Twitter. I think.
Did you?
A while ago. Yeah, and I think the most meme thing about it is that you don't actually have to do any work to make the list work. You just put the 2 battalions in. With the minimum things you can put in, and then you put in like a 3rd crawler, and then you're done.
Yeah.
There's no list building involved.
Yeah.
And I actually posted it because I was messing about with lists to see how stuff fit together, and I just came up with it, so I thought I'll just post this to Twitter as an example, and people really latched onto it, like, oh my god, this list's so good, I'm going to run this at tournaments, and I was like, wow, I wasn't suggesting you could be using. It's just an example, but, 3 crawlers and a bunch of very hard to kill skeletons will just win a lot of games on turn 1. So
Well, they're going to become like things in my speculation episodes, which is what I call them when there's very little information to go off of, and you're just kind of like half wish listing, half like making informed predictions. Was the speculating that like. Oh boy, I just buried the lead there. I'm still distracted by the amount of donations we just received. The part of the thing was the Mortek crawlers were going to be like the linchpin of the army one way or another. If they're good, the book's good. If they're bad, the book's bad. But the thing I had hoped for in my speculation was that their IDK, not Slanesh, not a little bit more of a gatekeeper army, the perennial 4-1 where they're really good. You can top 10 and you can podium if you catch some breaks, but when it gets right down to it, you're mostly just there to keep other armies honest. If they can't deal with you, you're going to steamroll games, And I think that's where they're going to settle in. I think OBR, I did kind of get my wish my wish in that this is not a meta shaper army. Cities is a meta shaper army. That shapes the meta. I think this army is just gonna say, do you have an extra hero, or are my Mortek crawlers gonna pull off your one linchpin buff hero? Because if you only are bringing one into a game, it's gone.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing is about Sigmar is that shooting is always a feel bad. Like, shooting is so powerful and breaks, much like Always Strike First did, it breaks the flow of the game and the way the game seems to be designed. Around, we get into combat, I choose, you choose, we alternate. And it breaks the flow of the game, and so either person with the shooting kills a bunch of stuff and wins, or doesn't and gets charged and loses.
Yeah.
And, I think in a shooting game, someone always feels bad. And I think, historically, most shooting has generally either been auto win, like
KO Concar.
Like KO were, or like Kernoth Hunters were before them in mixed order, when the points were very new back in the day. Or you've had things like Stormcast trying to do Ballista, where they dropped them all down and they either killed you or they lost because they didn't kill enough.
Yeah, and they're garbage. They're kind of garbage, but they're taking that I'm either going to strike out or I'm going to hit the home run. But hey, one way someone's going to feel bad.
Exactly. And I think crawlers, they're certainly very aggressively costed. I think if anything in the book needs a points change, it's only them, and they could probably do with being 20 points more.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's it. I think a lot of the things in the book are balanced by the fact that the cheapest unit you can take is 130 points.
Yes.
And yes, the skeletons are bonkers, but they're only really truly bonkers if they're fully buffed. And if you're taking crawlers, you're not going to be able to fully buff them.
Right.
So, like you said, I think the book is very good and very well balanced. I think the crawlers are just a little bit too much shooting. 20 potential damage output plus the special attack for 200 points is just maybe a little bit more utility than one unit deserves.
Maybe, but they do in some ways feel like a reactionary. I don't want to say that they were written reactionarily, but where they're tuned at is a reactionary to where the meta is, or where the meta I think is going to be in a little bit. Just a very.
Maybe. It's hard to say, isn't it? Because you hear all the stuff about book lead times, and this was designed 9 months ago, and books are designed out of sequence, and you hear all this weird stuff. So it's hard to guess whether that's the case or not. I think the reality probably just is that they're quite pushed. They're a bit, they're designed to be very attractive. They do have a weakness. They have no rend.
Mm-hmm.
That's a thing. And I do like them. I don't want to come across like I don't. I think they're quite a well-designed unit. Again, it's just that shooting is always very polarizing one way or another.
Right, and that's the thing, is you're going to end up with the feels bads and the polarizing, one way or another. From an internal balance, I think that's where they really, even though the Mortek crawlers are great, and again, you're allowed to have great stuff, but if you look at how you begin to build these lists and stuff, if you go all in on 4 Mortek crawlers, it becomes really hard to protect them.
Yeah, I think four's too many. I think 3 with a Liege Cavalos.
Well, you want Xantos. You want Xantos specifically.
Well, I mean, yeah, if you want to for some reason,
and
I guess.
Mortis Praetorians. Now you start to
Yeah, we're gonna not be friends if you keep talking about bad army. but that aside, yeah, you can't run 4. You can run 3 in a Liege Cavalos, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't give you a lot of army to play with, but equally it gives you 60 points of damage a turn.
Yeah, and that's the thing is if they don't have an army after the first turn, then
your small army doesn't matter if theirs is smaller.
Yeah, exactly.
When I put the list together, the redrop list with the battalion, with the Death Rider Horsey battalion we were talking about a minute ago, mine only had 2 heroes in, and someone said to me, "Well, what do you do on Places of Arcane Power?" And the answer to that for me is that 2 is still more than the 0 they will have when you've killed all their characters on turn 1. So it doesn't really matter.
Right.
You've only got
right.
2.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
to be fair, like, you're not getting a 1-drop shooting list with this army. And you're not teleport shooting. You're going to deploy honestly, and you're not going to out-drop armies serious about having good drop rates. Right? So, like, there's a little bit of a trade-off there.
Maybe. I mean, there's not really many super low drop armies left in the game now, and the ones that are don't really threaten you on turn 1.
It's true.
You know, like if Slaanesh want to be 2-drop, they can, but they're probably not charging you on turn 1 if you deploy properly, etc. So
right.
I think you still have the advantage in most situations there.
Right. Well, I mean, we're gonna have to. I mean, the games have to be played. I think overall the book is really it's good. More tech crawlers are pushed, but I don't. Beyond the standard sort of NPE of shooting, like, people were pissed at, like, Ballista, and they were bad just because of that, like, home run swing that would happen. People are going to be upset at more tech crawlers too, but once we play a bunch of games, tournaments happen, and people can actually step back and see what the practical result is, I think we'll have a lot better grade we can put on the book. But for now, I'm cautiously optimistic that it's a good book and that it doesn't do anything inherently bullshit beyond the standard.
Like, they're definitely not a million miles away from being perfectly fine. They're just a little bit over the top. I think the bigger bullshit thing in the book is actually just fully buffed units of skeletons. Because at least you can play around shooting, and against some armies you don't have enough of an army to play the objectives, etc. But if you're just playing a fighting army and you come across fully buffed units of skeletons, you're not even gonna get to play a game. You know, it's one thing having to play against Locust on a 2-up. It's even worse having to play against skeletons that you can't kill even if you hit them 3 times in a row.
To be fair, the illusion of playing the game goes a lot further. Even if it's... No, it does. Yeah. Like, because if they feel like they got to activate against you and play the game and shoot... That goes a lot further than, like, something that's less bent, but has lower interaction.
So I've got a funny story about that. So Richie played Sylvaneth for, like, a year.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And a lot of games against Sylvaneth back then, in a lot of missions, and the way Richie played his army, which was basically stick stuff all over the board and just win the objectives every turn while you try unsuccessfully to kill my army. Like, some of them games, I looked at them on turn 1 and I was like, this game is over on turn 1. But Richie got so many favourite game votes in that year when we were playing events that still had a lot of soft scores, because although he'd beaten people on turn 1, all but beaten people, and the game was largely a foregone conclusion, people felt like they were playing a game. They got to kill tons of dryads.
Yes.
They got to move around the board. Even though they were inevitably going to be unsuccessful, they felt like they were having a great game, and that, you know, and I guess that's an important thing about the hobby as well, you know, whether they had lost before the game started or not, they got to enjoy themselves for 2 hours, and, you know, I guess ultimately that's what favourite game votes are about.
If I may, I have just a big, it's almost like a big, just sort of a motto or an MO for me is people should get to play with their models. This is the same thing.
Yeah.
This is the mentality I take in a lot of things. This is why I think Cities should exist as a book. This is why I think you should get to play with your Mortality Glass character that currently you can't. And on the same, and then on the flip side of it, I think people should still get to play with their Keepers of Secrets and their Slaanesh book. You should get to play with your toys. That same MO I see on the tabletop when it comes to, like, whether an army beats the shit out of you or not. Like, Sylvaneth wins on deployment. Old Sylvaneth. You either teleport onto the objectives and you put up a bunch of trees and you're dry, you know, like, you win on the deployment, but the fact that people got to play with their toys makes it feel less bad. The reason Nagash was such a big feels bad early last year was because we had a big release that said, go and buy Malign Portents and play with all these new endless spells, and every army should ally in a spellcaster, and so on and so forth. It was a little bit of a misdirection to believe that every army should start playing with endless spells. Every army should start playing with spellcasters that doesn't belong to them. So when Nagash shows up, he says, your 400 points of toys are meaningless in this non-spellcasting army. Which is where Feels Bad comes from, is telling someone they can't play with their toys. And now we have a more educated player base, and that just happens over time. That happens with great podcasters and good content like yourself. As the player base gets more educated, they're less prone to that knee-jerk response of, like, Nagash is busted because he said no to my 400 points of spellcasting in a list that doesn't deserve to have spellcasting because I'm fucking Iron Jaws, and I'm, like, mad suddenly that Nagash told me I can't cast spells. But yeah, the illusion of rather being allowed to play the game, playing with your toys is just it's just a central theme. Yeah.
And then we're back around again to why shooting is feels bad, because setting your models up and then taking them off again is just not actually that much fun, as it turns out.
Correct.
A lot of the time.
Well, yeah, and then this now goes against my core principle, which is you should get to play with your toys. If we set them up and then you just take your toys off right away, you did not get to play with your toys.
Yeah. But, but then again, the counter to that again is the Bonereapers guy also wants to play with his toys, which is what he's doing. And so, that's also fine.
I put my Mortek crawlers out of reach of the camera on purpose, and I'm regretting it because I'm like, I just want to keep grabbing them and showing. I have 2 of them, and 2 is as many as I'll ever own, because I think it's the right amount personally. But I mean, and sure, not everyone gets to play with their toys equally, and you can't have ultimate parity because ultimate parity is illusion, but you can always be chasing ultimate parity, and that's what causes a meta to evolve. If there are problems in the meta, then you have to solve you have to work the problem and figure out the meta and work to innovate. You have to make a new list. You have to, like, even if you love your Ossiarch Bonereapers army, you go, I can't beat this army. Let's look at my book. What tools do I have to beat it? Like, that stuff is good. All of that stuff is good. Like, the illusion of parity and it not always being equal is actually just fine because it causes innovation. It forces us to play new stuff and try new stuff. And if you're stubborn about it, this is a two-sided take here. People playing Age of Sigmar are always buying new Age of Sigmar shit. Tell me I'm wrong and you're a liar. Like, they're always buying new stuff. It doesn't matter if it's a new army or new models for their army. Which means, as the meta evolves, if they are aware of it, then they'll buy new shit for their existing army or they'll buy a new army to adjust to. Now, I'm not saying, like, throw tons of money at the problem forever, but, like, with temperance and the knowledge that the meta will continue to evolve and you can continue to work the problem, just maybe accept it a little bit and keep working and keep striving and lean into that change a little bit. Now, there are outliers. I think Slaanesh was too much of a problem for too long, and Flesh Eater Courts, when it was peak Flesh Eater Courts at the beginning of the year, but those are outliers, and for the most part, I come back to, like, just keep working, keep painting and stay the course, So,
which is good because I own a game store, so the more people that keep buying, the better.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so I've got this website up here if you need to buy some stuff, or you happen to be in Liverpool or a short drive away from JustPlay. You can, like, if you're having trouble with Ossiarch Bonereapers here in the very near future, why don't you go and buy yourself a Soulscream Bridge and some very fine Cities models?
Yeah. See, we've got the answers. They're just a few clicks and some money away.
That's right. Actually, that's an interesting question. So, like, one of the things I'm sort of envious of in the UK is it seems like you have a sizable, like, one-day event literally every week anywhere I look on the internet in like, UK. And you have, like, a 2-day, like, once every couple weeks. Like, you guys are, like, have a pretty big, I don't know, like, a saturation of events. Which
it's actually getting to be a problematic saturation of events, I think. Probably soon. But yeah, it's big.
Yeah. So, like, you have, like, a lot of, and I think that does a couple things because this goes into the informed player base or a higher skill of your player base because they're playing more events, they're getting in more reps. It also means I think the UK meta advances a little bit quicker than, like, the American meta, for instance. Now, I live in the Midwest. We are, this is the home of Adapticon. One of our I think it's our biggest tournament in the U.S. We have a lot of events where I happen to live in the U.S., but like if you live on the East Coast or West Coast, you're not so fortunate. But if you live smack in the middle, like hell yeah. So we have we have a 2-day or a month about your local store probably has a 1-day, but they're just a little bit scaled down. How far does the average in the UK? How far do you are you willing to drive for the 2-dayer, or the 1-dayer? How does that break down? I'm just curious about the geography of events and how much UK players travel.
Yeah, so I mean, most the UK is obviously not very big. You can drive from Liverpool, where I am, which is about 3 hours south of Scotland. You can drive to the south coast in another 5. So it's 8 hours absolute max driving from the north of England, the top of England, to the very south of England. So most people will drive any distance for a 2-dayer. One of the longest standing events in the country is called the South Coast Grand Tournament, and it's on the South Coast, and that's very big. But most people will drive any distance for a 2-dayer because the maximum distance is actually that big.
Mm-hmm.
For a 1-dayer, most people won't drive more than an hour. So in my day, so when me and Richie used to play card tournaments back in the day, there was no such thing as a 2-dayer back then. Every tournament was a 1-day, even the big ones.
A round in Magic is pretty fixed at about an hour.
Yeah, exactly. So there was no Grand Prix back then or anything like that. So we'd be up at 4 a.m. and we'd drive to the south coast of England in 4 or 5 hours. We'd play a tournament and then drive home again. And me and Richie would both still do that now because that's just what we did when we were younger. But nowadays, most people don't travel for 1-day events, really. They'll travel sort of in the, maybe an hour or so localish area. Maybe occasionally travel further for something or stay over for the night if they've got friends there or whatever. But 1-dayers are generally kept quite small by the fact that people don't travel very far.
Well, you actually had one of your podcasts, or maybe it was just a post you made on Twitter. I remember you were talking about the importance of cross-pollinating events, and actually going to these 1-dayers that are out of your normal travel zone and stuff like that. Would you care to elaborate a little bit, or have you refined the opinion since?
No, I still hold the same opinion, and it's largely because of what I just said. People don't tend to drive, and I think. It's fun getting up early and going on a road trip.
Yes.
It's mildly less fun when you've got a tiny baby or something, appreciated. And a lot of people a lot of us tend to be in our 30s or something now. And a lot of people maybe have got kids. But it's a lot of fun getting up at 4 a.m., driving to a 1-dayer playing and then coming home again. I just think it's a shame that more people don't do it because, you go to 2-dayers, you get to play 5 people. And a lot of these are 100-plus player events. So over the course of a whole year, you're only getting to play. The average person who even goes to a 2-dayer every 2 months is only playing 25, 30 people a year. You could be playing double or triple that if you drove a little bit further to some 1-dayers.
A quick aside to the first point, which is I also have found I go to about a tournament a month for a 2-dayer a month, and I personally need to do a lot more. I need to do a better job of getting to some 1-dayers myself. But I've found that you tend to end up playing at the same person at least once in your cycle. I always end up playing at certain tournaments. I always end up playing the same people. There'll be 130 people and I'll still draw into one of the people I play everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really crazy. And the other part of that is in terms of so this is twofold or threefold even. I think this appeals to all all pillars of gaming in the Age of Sigmar community, or all spheres of gaming. From a hobby standpoint, going to more of these 1-dayers, you see more armies. If you're one of those people who loves to see new and interesting armies, you're gonna see more different interesting armies. You might have a lights out hobbyist in your immediate sort of circle, but someone else there's somebody who's that guy for their region, and then you get to go and see their take on a different army. That's really cool if you love the hobby. If you love, if you love the community aspect, you're just ingratiating yourself with more of the community. You're immersing yourself in more of the community. And if you're a fucking gamer who loves competition, you're getting a wider breadth of the meta. You're tuning up against more armies and different lists, so that when you do go to those 2-dayers and you're trying to podium, you've got more a higher quality of rep under your belt.
Yeah, exactly. And I think as well, there's a couple of things. Like, number one, it gives you a chance to play your other armies you don't play as much, maybe. Like get your old army out that you haven't played for a while, or try a different build. But also as well, I think I would like to see more emphasis put on results from 1-dayers. Because one dayers are, in terms of determining a winner in a strictly mathematical sense, 1-dayers are often actually give you a more accurate winner than 2-dayers do, because 2-dayers are just too big and we don't play enough games. And 1-dayers tend to be classed as, it's just a little local mess about, it's just fun, whatever. But I think 1-dayers are just as valid or more valid than 2-dayers in terms of competitiveness, and I would love to see them treated seriously, like with the respect they deserve, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is probably never going to happen, because there's literally only me that holds this opinion in the world. So there's probably no one else actually cares. It's just a thing that I think would be nice. And it would also help the calendar as well, because, like I just said a minute ago, the UK calendar is just nuts now. Like, there's so many 2-dayers. People can't take that much time away from their families. People can't afford the hotels. So, this breadth of events, which is amazing how many people are putting on events now, is actually going to crush the events and make them strangle each other to a large extent. And, people playing more 1-dayers would mean you get more populated tournaments, I think.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually going to take up that charge. I'm going to go way more pro 1-dayer, and I'm going to recycle your exact points every time I talk about it. No, I think there's a lot of quality in the 1-dayers, and I'm going to have LLV on in a few weeks, and I'm going to. It's too much work for one man to capture the stats of 1-dayers. He only captures the stats on 2-dayers, but I'll talk at him a little bit about how his lack of stats on the 1-dayers is devaluing them as a community. I'm kidding. I'm just.
Like LLVs, like IMEs, like straight up. You don't have to be emotional about every point that gets made. Mm-hmm. It probably actually does devalue them. Completely not intentionally, obviously, but the fact that as a community we only want to see stats on 2-dayers, we only want to know what the winner lists were from 2-dayers, we only get people trying to do coverage, and I don't just mean like honest wargamers. I mean everyone. No one bothers doing coverage for their own 1-day event, but people do coverage for their own. We don't give any respect to 1-dayers in any aspect. You don't see painting competitions at 1-dayers a lot of the time either. You do at some, but you see it at every 2-dayer and not at every 1-dayer. Why not? Why is the painted army less valid? The tournament was only 1 day. It's just, we just don't give them any respect.
See, you just heard Mr. Hates All Soft Scores, Ian O'Brien, talk about how you should value paint scores more at 1-dayers. So
no.
Checkmate.
Painting competitions, not scores.
I'm just.
But that's like I've said before. Like, I love paint competitions. I love to see them. I don't think they should be scored in with the main tournament, of course. But it's great to see everyone's army lined up and pick a winner, particularly for the people who are really into that kind of thing, and for people like me who just want to see people who are better at me than paint
stuff. I kind of I think we found your secret soapbox moment, which is the champion of 1-dayers, which is. I was wondering. Go on.
I just think it'd be cool. That's all. No real.
Well, even MTG, and I know it's like a faux pas to ever compare Age of Sigmar to Magic the Gathering, but there's a reason they're as big and successful as they are, and there's reasons why they're stumbling too. But like their one dayers are Friday Night Magic stuff like that. All that stuff is just as valid to them in terms of like grinding your. It's not called DCI anymore. It's your Eternal score and stuff. Like a lot of that stuff is about as valid. I know in terms of Eternal score, I believe it is. One dayers don't count for as many points overall as like placing like 50th overall in a 2-dayer or whatever. But like it still all counts, and I think that's important. Now, to be fair, I'm not saying we need to have stats and all this other stuff for one dayers, but I do think that we can realign our perspective. And as a community, that's something that's really easy to do if you're watching RantCast or consuming some podcasts down the line. But to actually just personally value one dayers a little bit more, I think that's really easy to do. I mean, if you go to your local gaming store, it's a 1-day event, you play 3 actual rounds and you win, you don't feel any less awesome in that moment than if you did it a 2-dayer, right? You might feel more awesome, but like it's not like it's not like you're walking away from that 1-dayer going, yeah, but it was just a 1-dayer. Fuck that. Like like you get yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, like you know what as well, like another reality of playing tournaments is that when you play at a 1-dayer, let's say there's 16 players, 4 of those players will be like top level competitive players who've maybe won 2-dayers, won big events, etc. So that's a quarter of the field is top players. When you play a 2-dayer with 100 or 150 players, as a percentage, there's much less than that top players in the field. So a lot of the wins when you go up a tournament and play 5 games, you very often only play 2 of them that are like highly competitive anyway.
Well, it's your day 2 event, yeah.
Yeah, like round 1 you get the guy who's just playing Beastclaw Raiders because he loves the army. Round 2 you get a guy who's right now playing Slave to Darkness, or maybe he's a guy playing Stormcast. They're not equal level to your Ossiarch Bonereapers or whatever. And very often when you play a 5-round tournament, you'll play 2 hard games if you're gonna be on the top tables. And when you play a 3-round tournament, it's often the same. So the reality of it is just as hard to win in terms of the people you've got to beat to get there.
The quality of rep is high.
Yeah, exactly. The only difference in a 2-dayer is that a lot of the time you just got multiple people on 5-0 and someone wins on a tiebreaker, which sucks. Whatever way you cut tiebreakers, they're not great. So,
yeah, I mean, we don't. From a practical standpoint, we can't play enough rounds to distill a true rhythm. Yeah, like we just, and that's not like lambasting the format of 2 days or anything. Like we simply can't play enough. Enough
it's
rounds.
Just the reality of time.
Yeah. So, talking about like tournaments, we could circle back to this, or we could talk about how Blood and Glory, Tom Maudsley won with Cities of Sigmar. Was that, because I know you're really upset at the Ossiarch Bonereapers Mortek Crawler and how great it is at shooting, but there was a lot of shooting to be had in Cities of Sigmar. And a lot of people, I feel like, are sleeping on Cities of Sigmar and how good the good lists are in that book. There's a lot of anger about Slaanesh that we're still just... I think we're getting over it. Every now and then, like, someone wants to complain about it real quick again. But, like, we're kind of getting over it. We've accepted it. They said something about the FAQ, and I think that, for the most part, silenced people. They're just, like, kind of waiting for the FAQ.
Yeah.
But with 2 new releases in terms of Maw Tribes and Ossiarch Bonereapers, and then you also had, alongside the Cities of Sigmar book, you had Orc War Clans. Cities hasn't gotten like a super ton of press because it's sort of the play with your old models again is sort of like the, I don't want to say the pitch, but it's become a little bit of the framing for the book, because people are like, oh, I get to play with my old cool stuff. But if you peel back a single layer and you go, well, let's play the best shit, let's play the tuned list, there's some really great lists in that book.
Yeah, there are. Yeah, it's I think there's there's a few outliers in there that certainly need to be fixed. I think the main thing that needs to be fixed is actually the soul screen bridge.
So if it teleports, oh, go on.
Yeah, like, I mean, when the problem is the soul screen, like, all of those units in Sigmar say, do this if the unit didn't move, right? And all of those units, the reality of the way a game of Age of Sigmar works is those units will always have to move once. They will fire some shots and then they will get murdered in combat. Or the game will be a foregone conclusion because they didn't kill enough stuff early and your army is a shooting army and it's full of expensive squishy units. When you change the rules so that all of those things that shouldn't be able to shoot on turn 1 at full efficiency can, then you've got a problem. And it's only really the soul screen bridge that makes everything better.
It's Clown Car 2.0 is what Soul Screen Bridge is. Is it's saying here's all your Arcanaut, all your Arcanaut company piling out of like boats and just turn 1 everything's dead. Yeah. You're doing that with the bridge as well now. Like you've changed the cosmetics of it, but the situation is the same.
Yeah, it's the same problem. And compounding that is the fact that you've then got this command ability for spells that lets you not only auto-cast your spells, but also in a way that can't be unbound by absolutely anything in the game, which is also a problem because anything that promotes non-interactivity in a game where there isn't actually that much interactivity in the hero phase anyway is bad.
Yeah.
So the Soul Screen Bridge, basically just the Soul Screen Bridge plus Hollow Heart is what causes all those problems. I think if you'd remove the Soul Screen Bridge from the game, which I think would actually just be a good change if they just did that, I think Hollow Heart would be fine. I think it would be nice if they changed that command ability to once a turn, just to promote a bit more interactivity.
So you can't get 2d6 or 3d6 plus.
Just so you can't auto cast every spell and never have it unbound. I just don't think that should be a thing. But the real problem is the Soul Screen Bridge, and I think if they change it to only teleport 1 unit per turn, as is the rumor, I think that will not fix the problem whatsoever.
Well, you gotta hit the command point, and you gotta hit the bridge, because these are the things that are in Magic. They ban the engine, they don't ban the card. Those are your engines. Your engine is Soul Screen Bridge is the delivery system for all your awesome shooting. So like you tone it down to just 1 unit, you're just gonna pick the higher quality shooting unit to shoot the important thing, etc., etc. But you also then need to hit the ability to get plus 18 to casting, so that like So you got to hit both. You got to say this command ability can't be used more than once per turn. Because it's fine to play heavy metal music in the background, roll a d6 damage to your own dudes, and have a bonus to spellcasting. That's really cool. I think I'm okay with that. As a Nagash player, I'm just sitting here like I'm the supreme lord of goddamn death, and I ate all the other death gods, and I cost 880 points, and I get a plus fucking 3, and you're 90-point idiot. Just cuts himself and can cast on the same level as me. And by cuts himself, I mean cuts his fucking retinue standing next to him. Fucking asshole.
It's a bit much. I think, really, for me, the problem... So that they did this errata like a year ago or something for Wanderers at the time. Wanderers had these things that say, if you haven't moved, this happens. And they did an FAQ for Wanderers, basically saying that if you put something on the board and it counts as having moved or whatever the wording was, you still don't count as having actually moved. And they've carried that FAQ forward now. And what I think the way to solve the Soul Screen Bridge problem, if you're going to leave it in the game, is just to revert this silly ruling where if something says you count as moved, you should fucking count as moving. Like, if you're doing a thing instead of moving, then you should count as moving. Because all that's going to happen is this situation, is you're going to have things that shouldn't be able to move and do something because they're too powerful, suddenly able to circumvent it because of a silly FAQ.
You do have to solve a second problem that'll open up for reverting that language, though, which is some of the battle plans that say you have to have moved onto the objective. So now you have to FAQ
yeah.
those battle plans. So you do have a second side of that by
Like
reverting.
I think that wording also should be fixed. Personally, I think that teleporting onto an objective. If you can teleport, then you should be able to teleport and take an objective. I don't think that you shouldn't be able to do that just because you teleported. I think that yes, teleports are good. Yes, there's maybe too many of them in the game, but it's such a technicality. And as a rules guy and often a judge in different events, it's really, really shitty to be called to someone's table and someone says, "Can you tell my opponent that he hasn't actually got that objective because he teleported onto it?" It's shit. It's a gotcha. It shouldn't happen to people, and it would be better if it wasn't in the game.
See, that's actually like a really cool. I'm actually kind of happy you went that direction because you stayed consistent with your point. Is if you just make teleports a movement, then it solves all these other problems, and I don't give a shit about the two battle plans. Go ahead and capture it because you teleported. Screen the objective, dude. Like, play the game.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. If someone's letting you teleport onto an objective, you shouldn't not be able to claim it because of a technicality. Like, I very much doubt that was ever their intended reason for wording those things like that, was that they want you to have to have physically moved onto it. It was just a side effect of the way they worded it, and then they just went with the wording.
Yeah, interesting.
It's just knock-on effect on knock-on effect, like a lot of these things are in war games. Unfortunately, something does something else, and then further down the line, you get a soul screen bridge.
Well, yeah, I mean, this game is played. I always say it's played in 3 dimensions, but I mean that in terms of like rules tend to be very linear in their progression, but then like when you add the 3-dimensional aspect of the game of Age of Sigmar, the linear progression of rules it becomes this like crazy sort of like spreadsheet of extra possibilities that are in some respects difficult to account for, and then we have to have really weirdly specific FAQs and so on and so forth. But if you streamline it, like with your point about Soul Screen Bridge, where a move is a move is a move, even a teleport where you're moving the model, it's a move, and then you just like you create this nice smooth sort of plane. This is how it is.
Everyone knows how it works. Job done.
Yeah, job done. Like you're streamlining it, you're getting more elegant. And that should be the goal of rules writing. That's why, like, with the Harvester, the Gothazar Harvester, one of the coolest fucking names of anything in Age of Sigmar, Gothazar Harvester. I'm not sure if he's harvesting goths or what, but, like, it's pretty sweet. That's just a pile of rules text. And, like, I wish you could streamline that. Because I hate whenever... So when I do like homebrew rules for D&D, the first thing I do when I'm trying to come up with something really fucking cool is like I reread the rule I came up with that was really cool and go, can I say this easier? Like, first thing I say, like, is can I make this easier? Because the minute I write a paragraph to explain one rule, I have done my job wrong. Like, I hate as a homebrew D&D rules designer. Guaranteed COS is going to be the next Slanesh, says Smoochie. After Slanesh gets nerfed.
Yeah, it's not. No, that's overestimated book, I think.
Well, to be fair, I think so many people are paranoid for the next Slanesh because of that it's caused a lot of panic in the community. Ossiarch Bonereapers, like there's the spreadsheet for the million regenerating skeletons and 5 skeletons with 2 Gothazar Harvesters and how much they can regen. I'm just like, it won't play that way on the table.
I mean, I'm prone to hyperbole when I want to make a point right, but that whole Gothazar Harvest thing, so dumb. I don't even start. Like, number one, it's probably going to get errated anyway, and if it wasn't before all this outcry, it probably is now, regardless. But and it probably should be errated because one model dying and getting 2 models back doesn't really make any sense thematically anyway. But regardless, if you're running 4 Gothazar Harvesters, even if I'm not running a shooting army, there is no situation against any competitive army that I will ever build where you will beat me, ever. Because you won't have enough stuff on the table to win the game. Doesn't matter if I can't kill your 10-man unkillable skeleton unit. Also can't kill my 40 guys.
I'm just going to sit outside of 4 inches on the objective and say, come on.
Like, Yeah, I'm gonna stick 40 guys on the objective, and I'm gonna say, sure, I can never kill you, but I also own the objective, so I don't care.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and if you put your harvesters in range to get some damage out of them, then I'm gonna kill the harvesters because they're just 10 wound 200 point models. Like, and people are saying, I've heard a few. You always get these really awful counter arguments that still fail to take into account reality. So people are saying, well, you just string the skeletons out, don't you? And it's like, that literally doesn't change the argument. Now you're telling me that you're going to hold all the objectives with 20 skeletons stringing out across the whole board. Like, what game are you playing? Like,
well, I mean, that's 20 inches. Do basic math. Yeah, like do some basic.
Just, it just wouldn't work. It won't work on the table. Yes, it might. Some games it might work.
Oh yeah, like Duality of Death.
Yeah, but you're not beating competitive players with competitive armies with that ever in a million years.
Well, and that's the thing is you might steal one battle plan or two battle plans a tournament.
Yeah, exactly.
We play 5. Like
yeah, and it's nowhere near as bad as say Shalaxi cutting herself for 90 depravity on turn 1. Not Shalaxi, Sileska cutting his own army for 90 depravity on turn 1. That's a real thing.
Yeah. I mean, and that because the how that ends up on the table and the results are real. Whereas like these spreadsheet arguments for some stuff that's like busted or like Math Hammer is a ton of fun, by the way. I'm not bashing Math Hammer. I love Math Hammer. It's a lot of fun to do this shit. But then you have to take that second step and go, well, how does it look on the table? Like it's so often a lot of these bad arguments for some of these things that like people get mad about. And I'm gonna bring this back to my initial point. Some of the things people get mad about, they're so clearly coming at it from the point of view of someone who just reads a lot of Facebook posts and a lot of TGA posts, and they don't actually play the game, or they have that guy at their LGS and they've never been to a tournament. Like it's I'm not saying that your point is somehow invalid if you've never been to a tournament. I'm just saying that you don't have a complete picture of the game, and
no.
And some people are they're so paranoid that something is going to be the next Slaanesh, because we did get Flesh Eater Courts. And then we got Skaven, and then we got Slaanesh, and it just felt like we had this just like...
We've had a bad year. We've not had a great year for balanced things happening.
Well, we've had... last year it was Daughters of Cain and LON, and even if I concede that LON was like too busted, if I concede that, which I'm not, but if I do for purpose of this debate, it was only 2 armies. And this year we've already had 3, right? And so like that, just from a sheer number standpoint, is. But on the flip side of that, we've released a lot more than 2 armies this year. Yeah. And the vast majority of them have not been Slaanesh or Flesh Eater Courts or Skaven. And Skaven is, honestly, they fixed the thing about it I hated the most, and I think it's just kind of fine now. Fix the Plague Monk War Scroll to not just be piles of rules, which is what I hate. Yeah. I don't care that they explode when they die. I just hate the pile of rules. Fix the pile of rules so tons of stuff does infinite damage in the game of Age of Sigmar. I don't care that you do infinite damage. Just do it quickly so that I can fucking chaff it, screen it, or play around it. Like, I don't care that you do infinite damage. I'll figure out a way. But, like, do it quickly so I can keep playing the game of Age of Sigmar. So I can play with my toys.
Yeah, agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so we've got the chats popping off now.
Yeah. We're on to the controversial bit, the army discussions.
Yeah, talking about armies. We were playing so nice before. Next Slaanesh is clearly going to be STD. Maybe. I mean, I did see Ben Johnson painting up Varangard today or something like that. So, could be.
Yeah. See.
Playing high and playing efficiently. I hope Archeon sucks. I don't care about the Grand Marshal of the Apocalypse that fucking Mary Sue. Model school, though, I guess. My question was with Slaanesh. How the fuck did this book ever pass by testing and not be questioned? I think that that might be unfair. Because it was probably a complex situation where it wasn't just playtesting was at fault. Like, it's possible playtesters were like, this is busted, and then they were ignored. Or, like, maybe it really didn't, like, what they were... I don't know about how GW does their playtesting, so I can't speak to it. But when you playtest in like video games, which I have done, and when you playtest in board games, which I have done, you usually don't get a complete version of the thing. You playtest bits and pieces of it. Playtesting video games, for instance, you have like 2 levels, and you're just told to playtest those 2 levels over and over and over again for this criteria. When you playtest board games, you don't have a complete set of the rules that they're playtesting with. That, like, final tier of what is the stress test in an MMO, what many of you know, like from MMO beta testing and stuff, that's like a completed version of it. You're just doing a stress test. You're only finding, like, big, stupid shit at the end that, like, I don't know how Games Workshop handles it, but my belief is that, like, it might not be, they might not be testing complete stuff, but I don't know. Like, I simply don't know. I would love to talk to, like, a playtester and be able to, like, hear that stuff, because I think that would be pretty sweet, but, like, I simply have no idea. Like, I'm curious how systems and rules and things like that work. That's just part of, like, my personality, and so that's just something I'm curious about, but from my experience with playtesting board games and video games is you're usually not given a complete entity to playtest. So it might be an interaction that just, like, wasn't fully there. A rule wasn't in there yet, like, so on and so forth. If they had multiple playtesters on the project, one playtester might have been testing just depravity, another might have been testing damage. Because, like, I look at that army and, like, the points are right. Keeper of Secrets might even be, like, overcosted for what it would actually do on its war scroll before Allegiance abilities, Double Pylon, and Locust factor in. You know? If Locust goes off on a 4-up, a Keeper is suddenly not as awesome. Because half the time it's just going to get blown up by a 400-point monster it just charged. So I don't know. But the thing is depravity... Go on.
It's, we don't know enough about the process, and it's, I think, some, but, it's not, like, they do test books in their entirety. They don't split up in books,
Okay.
But I think it's obviously like, I work in IT, and I see lots of processes all the time, and some of the biggest and most profitable and best companies in the world have awful processes where you just look at them and go, how are you successful when you have a process this bad? I guess there's probably a few factors, like there's the play testers that they have got, what is their experience with play testing things from a games point of view? Like, they don't just play test stuff for balance, you got to remember, they play test stuff for fun. Are we okay with this book? Do we think this will make good games? And not just catering to us. They've got a lot of stuff in there, and playtesters are volunteers. Don't forget as well. So
they're not paying money.
Regardless of what we know or think we know, or what we get told, even someone might be a playtester. They might just play like a game and go, yeah, we think this is fine, and miss stuff. Yes, you can argue that something I say, and it's a little bit self-aggrandizing, but I say, look, I can pick up mostly any book from Games Workshop, and I can tell you with 90% accuracy what the best stuff is, and if anything's bent straight away. But the great majority of people can't do that, and certainly not every playtester is going to be able to do that, and maybe not every playtester gets to read every book. And it's, I guess the whys and the wherefores of how it happens are less relevant than the fact that they seem to be getting better at stopping it happening, bar Hallowheart. So, they're nearly there.
Bar Hallowheart. Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing, is, like, they do correct. There's a little bit of some boat racing going on with how they fix these things forward. But I actually wrote down a question on my show notes, which I totally don't take because this is RantCast, and who would ever take notes on something called RantCast? You kind of, like, were on the peripheral of it with your 90% thing. I actually wrote it down when I wanted to talk about how you do tome reviews, which is... you kind of say pretty explicitly early on in a lot of your reviews is like, we only really talk about the best stuff. Like, you say that, and you do have an eye for honing in on what the great stuff is, which is, why I like listening to your stuff, because I'm like, I think this stuff is pretty great, and then I like go listen to, is Ian talking about it? Okay, cool, I know what's up. And then I like pat myself on the back for being smart too. But, like, is there something in recent memory or in this last year of Just Sayings where, like, you were wrong? Where there was, like, something that showed up later on in the meta that you said was crap, and then, like, it just turned out to be great? Like...
I don't think there is. But, you know, we certainly make plenty of mistakes. You know, like, we often record podcasts on a Wednesday, and we don't get, like, early review copies or anything. We just get our store copies, which normally arrive on a Wednesday. So a lot of the time, when we're recording on Wednesday, we've only had, like, an hour reading the book. And, you know, it takes time to digest those things. It takes time to read stuff. Sometimes you just misread something, and you read the paragraph 10 times and keep misreading the same thing, like, over and over again. So, I mean, we've certainly made mistakes in stuff we've read and said, oh, it turns out that unit is good, or oh, that unit is actually bad because we misread it. But I don't think we've failed call anything. You know, like, we called Gristlegore in 8 seconds. Right after opening.
And you gravitated to something that, like, not a lot of other people were gravitating to, which was the bite specifically. Like, you were honed in on that bite. You're like, this is the problem.
Yeah, it cracks me up when a book comes out because, you know, we looked at that and we went, and at that time I'd misread that you reroll every hit roll on the bite and not only misses as well. So it was actually even worse than I thought it was. You know, people were like, I always join the big, massive worldwide WhatsApp chats really early on just to see what people are talking about because I always find it funny. And that book, people were talking about, like, oh my god, there's so many different builds. You know, look, we can do this. We can run it with, you know, no allegiance ability. We can do this. We can run Ballista Skin. People are going to do this, and people are saying, oh, there's going to be 20 different army builds in this, but then there's just one. There is one. Yes, some people have had some success with Ballista Skin, but largely there was one. The same for the Skaven book. When the Skaven book came out, I said, look, the problem unit in this book is Plague Monk. The army that I went and wrote straight away was 140 Plague Monks.
To be fair, Pestilence... 200 Plague Monks a year ago was busted as shit. Just people didn't want to move 200 fucking Plague Monks around the table.
Yeah, it's still busted now. It's just no one wants to play it.
Yeah,
but it's still just as busted now.
And it got better. It's just nobody wants to do it.
I think another thing I talked about in that book is I think Thankwall and Warpfire Throwers are both busted as well. It's just that no one's really seems to have like that book's got a lot of stuff you can do in it, and I think sadly no one's really explored that book. You know, no one's really sat down and gone, I'm going to be a Skaven player for 2 years, because there's all sorts of amazing stuff you can do with that book. But it just, you know, hasn't got there. But I think for the most part, I think we've called most things. But again, I don't take a massive amount of pride in that because I actually think these things are largely obvious. I think my big one was Slaanesh was not a solved build, and it still isn't to some extent, but people were playing like every host, and I was like, look, Godseekers is the only host to play. Like, really? When you summon a unit, it charges on an 8 instead of a 9, and we had 2 local people. We had James Tinsdale and JP Stevens, who both done very well with Slaanesh this year. Everyone argued with me that Godseekers wasn't the best, and I took a 3-month and multiple keepers wasn't the best, and I argued that Demonette sucked and they should be running Hellstriders and things that were faster. And I took a 3-month break and I came back and everyone was playing my list. Like, everyone was playing my list like verbatim with Godseekers with the whole thing, and that was kind of funny.
Our local scene's a little bit different. Everyone's on the Invaders list, which is really, I think that just speaks to like regional differences and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think the problem with Slaanesh is you can have a list that is objectively worse than the best list, but it doesn't matter because they win every game anyway. And I think that was what made...
Not every game. Vince Venturella couldn't beat my Beasts of Chaos, or Beastclaw Raiders for that matter.
Well, Vince has gone down in my estimations as a player.
No, he's a great player. We stole the win 100% at a narrative event.
But, you know, like, I guess the point I'm making really is that it's harder for people to see that they're making that they're not using the most optimal build when
You win
they're
for
winning.
free. Yeah.
When you win in games, people have a mental block about saying, "What can I improve?" Because I won anyway, so the fact I'm playing Invaders is great. But then you go and play, that game on. So at the Justice Series, JP won with a Slanesh. The reason he won was because he rolled an 8 to charge a unit in after he summoned it. And that happens all the time when you're playing that army. In the tightest games where you really need the edge, the Godseeker's Edge is the one that you need, for example. And it's hard to pull those things out sometimes, I think.
Yeah. Well, no, as far as like the competitive mentality, which I think is just a little bit of a different mentality from some other playstyles and other players out there. One of the advice I would often give when I was running a lot of like the video game competitive events, the MOBAs, the shooters, the fighters, was every game you win, like find the places you could have lost and find something you did bad. And because if you're actually looking in your wins and you're critical of like, if you know that you pardon me, if you know that you had another gear and you look for that, you're going to get better. But if you just take for granted that you won and then just move on to the next game, like, you're not going to actually improve. You're just going to kind of idle. And so, like, I think it's important to, like, run self-diagnostics. That's also with, like, RantCast here. Like, some of my episodes are bad. Why did I think it was bad? Figure it out. Okay, this episode, I crushed it. But where wasn't the best? I just think that's a mentality I possess, and that I think a lot of people should... You can be conscious of it and sort of key in on stuff like that. And, like, that's the thing is, like, Slaanesh, it's hard to build a list that doesn't win if you're taking its heroes. Provided you're taking its heroes, right? Like...
It's hard to build a list that doesn't feel powerful. And therefore, even if all right, winning every game's hyperbole, but winning 4 out of 5 is very easy. And it's hard to see what you're doing wrong when that 1 game out of 5, you could be blaming yourself making mistakes, you blame your dice, whatever. But also, there were probably more inches in your list that you could have given yourself, to maybe take them out.
So, speaking of the list, so like it's pretty. I think it's pretty straightforward. Whether it's it doesn't matter if it's invaders or Godseekers or whatever. Like, people are pretty keyed in on quote unquote the list for Slaanesh. Do you think they're keyed in on quote unquote the list for cities?
I think that people have a tendency to think a list is the best because it won a tournament.
Correct. They're wrong.
And I think that people at large, and this isn't just Age of Sigmar, people tend to be unable to separate what won from what was the best list there. Like there's plenty of lists that have been incredible that no one ever remembers because they didn't win an event. And there's some lists that have won events that didn't really deserve to be there, but played by a good player, and on the day they had a good time, etc. The two things don't always correlate, but Soulscream Bridges and Hollow Heart are busted. So,
yeah. So like as long as people are keyed in on Hollow Heart and Soulscream Bridge, they're gonna start racking up the wins.
Yeah, and I think there are better lists in the book than that.
Okay. Better list than, for instance, everyone's running in Tom's list. That's all I've heard since Blood and Glory.
Yeah, and it's not Tom's list. It's we talked about that list on the podcast the week before that event. As an example, and it was being discussed in plenty of little side chats with good players. Everyone had that list written down. It was by no means a secret, although I do think that the competitive player community doesn't always do a good job of being open with its list. So something like this happens and everyone's like, oh my god, look at that new list. It's like, oh, we all wrote that. We all wrote 4 Luminarchs in City. And if that had won, people would be going, oh my god, look at how innovative that is. It's like, but we all went and wrote it, 'cause it's obvious.
Yeah.
It's a powerful list, and because people aren't prepared to deal with what it does, it will win a lot of games, and it's very strong, but I don't think it's the best list in the book. And it is one of those lists that the meta can adapt to as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that list can't win if you play Ungor Raiders. If you've got an army list with 6 units of Ungor Raiders in your 1-drop battalion, that army cannot beat you in any way, because when they do their pre-game move, suddenly none of the ranged attacks can hit any of your important stuff anymore. As an example.
Well, I think Beast of Chaos got subtly better in the meta, and no one's paying attention to it. But that's on them.
That's definitely a different topic, yeah. I mean, the point is, I think that it's a very fragile list, and you know, even when it goes and does all its shooting, you can still then charge it and kill it. You know, with some armies like Oryx are a really good army against it because they've got their saves too good and they've got too many models and they get them back. Like, there's loads of counterplay to that army. Unfortunately, the counterplay is in list building, so a lot of people will just lose to it straight away. And that's why I say there's better armies in the book, because there's armies in the book that are less all in on their plan, but are much harder to deal with on the table.
Right. Well, and that's the thing with Age of Sigmar is we don't have like a sideboard or anything like that. Like, you don't get to bring 2 lists. And in a practical sense, you're physically carrying a massive display board. You have 100 models. You have to hobby all this stuff. It's not quite as simple as just like filling up your cart and ordering a bunch of cards. Like, you know, so like it's not like, I understand it, but that is part of what I think makes meta planning so kind of awesome in Age of Sigmar. But in order for it to be like peak awesome, you've got to have known commodities. Like, there has to be a meta to adjust for. There has to be.
That does, Like, I think the good thing about Cities of Sigmar, one of the things I love about it the most, is there's some obvious core units in it. You know, there's handgunners, there's crossbowmen, there's Iron Drakes and or Sisters of the Watch, if you're that way inclined. And then there's some smaller units you might want 10 of. You know, like any unit of 10 Dark Elves to sacrifice to the Sorceress, you want one of them in your cabinet. Some Halberdiers in case you need an 80-point unit in your cabinet. And then a Hurricaneum and a bunch of Wizards. And you can build a ton of different builds with different cities and different configurations from like 3,000 points a troop. Mostly using the same units, but for different things. And I think that's what's really great about it. And I think, you know, if people start building the army, you don't need a completely different 2,000 points army. Play something different. Yeah. And I think that book's strength really is it's very adaptable. Very adaptable to the meta. It's not the best army in the meta, but I think it can beat anything in the meta, which is really good place to be in.
Before I continue with this point, Tristan, Tomb King Tristan from chat asks, how do I, as a Canadian, support JustPlay?
You can't buy Games Workshop products from us, unfortunately, but you can buy anything else if you want to. You know, anything else that we sell, you can buy. That said, postage is very, very expensive to overseas, and we would by no means expect you to do that just to support us. So you know, just listen to the podcast and chat with us on Twitter, and you know, maybe retweet some of our stuff so that maybe some people in the UK see it and then do buy Games Workshop stuff off us. That would be great. But we, you know, I appreciate the fact that I want to more than anything. Like, you know, if people in the UK, I'd love it if they bought all their Games Workshop stuff off us, but we often get orders from people who don't realise that Games Workshop don't allow us to sell outside of the EU. We often get orders of like 1 box of Games Workshop models where someone's bought them for £30 and is paying £15 postage just to support us, and that's like super touching. Right. And every time it happens, I'm like, I have to email this guy and just say, thank you so much for wasting all this money on postage just to try and support us, because it's a really, really nice thing to do.
Yeah.
Just the thought is genuinely.
Yeah. So like what I was gonna elaborate on is one of the first things you mentioned in I don't know, there's been like you've done like 3 podcasts on cities practically at this point. And it's just a big book with a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
So There's nothing wrong with that. But you latch on real early to this notion of mono build armies or mono build books, and how just Cities is simply not that, which is sort of what you were just talking about. Fire Slayers, I don't think is completely mono build, because I think there's a little experimentation to be done with smaller units than just the blob. Everyone seems to be committed to the blob, but like, who knows?
Yeah.
But for the most part, that's still a mono build army. When Slaanesh gets nerfed, I could see that actually kind of becoming a mono build style army. That weird to state, but like Cities certainly is not that. It is this robust, interesting book. There is sort of this surface level best in slot notion where you're like, there is going to be a best in slot if I need a melee scrapper, great sorters or whatever. There's going to be a best in slot shooting unit. Handgunners because they shoot you in the charge phase, or crossbowmen because they can double shoot you at range. But there's going to be a best in slot that sort of distills down. But then you peel back a single layer, you read a little bit more in depth, and you look at like something like Hammerers, and you go like, they wear every buff in this book. Whereas like there's a ceiling on the buffs you can put on great sorters. You're like, Hammerers can wear every buff, and then you get to start really like freestyling and building some really interesting, still strong lists.
Lists that are all capable of going 5-0 tournament, with good play and a little bit of luck behind them. There's a lot, and the thing about Cities of Sigmar is like it contrasts with Khorne for me, because I always said Khorne was the best book that's been released for Age of Sigmar and one of my personal favorites. But where the Khorne book fell, the Khorne book is just full of tier 2 units. The best units in the book are tier 2 units, bar the Slaughter Priest and the Bloodthirster, pretty much. But you can't get them for that.
Even a Bloodthirster's kind of like it's more about the force multiplication you put on a Bloodthirster than...
Yeah, right. So when I'm talking about the units, I'm talking about everything.
Everything. Okay, the best case scenario for the unit.
All in, yeah. Bloodthirster's brilliant, but the problem the Khorne book's got is, outside of Bloodthirsters and Slaughter Priests, every unit in the book is tier 2 at best. Like their battle line are bad, like Blood Warriors are awful for that point.
Garbage.
Fleshhounds are efficient in theory, but they don't really fill any role well enough. So you end up with like 100-point battle line units where you really want to spend less, or you want to spend more and have them. It doesn't really have enough. Where Cities has got more tier 1 units than Khorne's got. Like characters generally aren't what win you the game in most armies. It's mostly the other units, unless the characters are super sick. Like Keeper's Secrets or Terrorgeist. It's mostly the quality of your units that defines how truly great an army is. And Khorne doesn't have that, whereas Cities has got like some absolute tier 1 units, and then a slew of tier 1.5 units and tier 2 units that are all made playable because they fill a role that you need them to fill. Like Great Swords are fine. Like Great Swords are just tier 2 unit for me, maybe even a little bit worse. But if you want something that just hits things at the expense of everything else, then you've got a unit that can fulfill that role in them. And the book's just full of that, which is just in turn means that you can just make so many builds.
And there's not another thing I identified is there's not like a whole lot of battle line tax throughout the army, because you can always find a way to get a quality battle line. And that's one thing I usually gauge an army on is, do they have good battle line?
Yeah, like it's got battle line tax in a different way, which is really interesting. It's the hardest thing to do in that book is to get your drops down.
Yes.
That's the absolute most difficult thing to do in the Cities of Sigmar book. So your tax is often, what characters and units do I need to take to make sure I've got my battle line requirements at the same time as keeping my drops low? Like, you could take 3 units of 10 handgunners in every army for your battle line, and then you get 3 snipers, and then you can choose a character every turn, which is great, but your drops are going to be high by the time you've taken everything else you need. There's so so many decisions that go into the list building that aren't just what's the most efficient use of points, which again I just find really interesting from a list building point of view.
Yeah. Chaos Spawn here asked, how many savage orcs is too many?
Whatever the number, 2,000 divided by the points cost of savage orc. If you've got more than that, you've probably got too many.
Good answer. Yeah. No. So like it's a cool book. There's also some fluff. One thing that you mentioned is you are not converting your Hurricanum, which I thought was one of the funniest things I had heard in that podcast. Because you're like, oh, everybody is converting their Hurricanum, and so my conversion is I won't do it so that everyone's going to see my Hurricanum.
Actually, can I show you my Hurricanum?
Please, yeah, grab your Hurricanum.
My Hurricanum's still a bit work in progress, so my Hurricanum, and I'm not looking at, I need to get myself live so I can actually see these details. All I've done with my Hurricanum is I've removed the Karl Franz bit. So here, I've removed where it says Emperor Karl Franz, and I've removed the Reichland symbols that were here and here, and I've done the same on this side, and I've filled in the Emperor Karl Franz bit there, because I couldn't handle the amount of times it said Emperor Karl Franz on this model.
Yeah.
Like, and he's not even relevant anymore. Like, who's Emperor Karl Franz? He literally doesn't matter. So I just have to remove all those references, and I've now got to technically convert.
Yeah, I give you conversion points on a checklist. So
the job is done.
For those of you listening in pure audio, I'm sure that you'll throw some photos up on Twitter. Man, that's fantastic. I thought that was really funny. And then the other part is like you're actually like spending a lot of time on Facebook groups now, and they made you a moderator on the Cities of Sigmar.
Yeah.
So
I chat a lot on Facebook anyway. Like like my job involves a lot of micro downtime. Mm-hmm. So like I'll do something and then I'll have like 40 seconds to wait until I can do something else. So I'll just load up a Facebook page, and that's why I'm on Facebook and Twitter so much, because I do that a lot. But I speak to Luke Stone, who runs Cinderfall Gaming Network.
He's been on RantCast, yeah.
Well, yeah. Like he's an awesome guy, and I just got chatting to him a little bit over time, and then he just asked me if I'd help out on the Cities group, and like being a mod is the most zero effort thing in the world. It's like you do nothing different than you normally would, and if someone posts a dick, you delete the picture.
Yep.
That's the extent of that job. People seem to somehow think it makes you important.
Yeah, I mean, people talk to me differently. They know me on, so there's like 2 Ossiarch Bonereapers forums, and on Luke Stone's Ossiarch Bonereapers one, I'm a moderator on it, and then on the other ones I'm not, and people in the same people in 2 different groups will talk to me different because they see the little admin shield next to my name.
Yeah.
And like,
yeah. I wish it didn't have that. Like, I wish it didn't have that, so people would just not like, because again, like I'm quite forceful with opinions and stuff, so I'm happy to be challenged on opinions and have these discussions. And when you're a moderator, no one wants to argue with anything that you say, and it sucks. It ruins the discussion.
I'm working on building a rapport with people, but like the one post I went to post the other day is because everyone was mad at this Gothazar Harvester thing. And so I've taken up like a cause to like not get OBR to get labeled Slaanesh before we've played them in any real capacity, and like it really desperately feels like people are looking for the next Slaanesh. They're looking for the next Slaanesh with Cities of Sigmar and Soulscream Bridge. They're looking for the next Slaanesh. And again, I think they're just paranoid because Flesh of Your Court, Skaven, it was just a bad progression of events. But like, I don't think any of these armies are, and I'm trying to, that's the thing I'm nipping in the bud as an admin right now, is just like, let's stop this sensationalist shit. Like, immolation isn't the best ability in the allegiances. Petrifex by far is, because it's offense and defense. It's very simply, and it's like a simple thing. It's just 3-up save skeletons is pretty awesome. Like, it turns out, like
either that or the -1 rend. Both would have made the best elite.
Yeah.
Either or.
Yeah, either, and you get them both. You get them both in the same one, and like, unlike with like storm hosts and shit, like you don't have to do any gymnastics. Like my fear was like I can't run Catacross and Petrifex. No, you could just run him.
Yeah, you just run them anyway.
You just run them anyway. Like cool, awesome. But like so I've been like nipping that in the bud, and I went to like people were like having a discussion, and then I went to type my message as like the admin to like have a real discussion with people, and I'm like real quick, I had to check my level of sarcasm I was allowed to use here because like I wasn't sure which group I was responding to, so I had to check real quick to see how much sarcasm I was allowed to use, and I realized this is the one I'm the admin in, so you'll get 0 sarcasm. And then I was like really straightforward, but like that message was itself sarcasm, pointing out that no one will talk to me. Like,
yeah.
So like, but no, I don't mind it. Like you said, it's just like I approve or disapprove people trying to get in the group, and when there are reported messages, I look and see if they are bad or good, and then I get rid of them.
Yeah.
So it's not bad, and I don't know. I just think like you've got a podcast, and you're a moderator in a group. You're helping kind of shape the community, but like an important part of shaping a community is understanding that people have differing opinions, respecting them enough to listen to them. But like you don't have to like lockstep go along with the opinion. You can have a different opinion, but it's just about like sort of shaping the dialogue and choosing the discussions and progressing. So I think it's cool. I really think that JustSaying has been a really good voice, and I'm super happy it's back because I sensed a void when you guys were gone.
Yeah, I'm happy. Thank you for the nice comment, and I'm happy it's back as well because like I say, I never really wanted to stop even while I wasn't playing Sigmar because it's fun. The same reason commentators commentate on football or wherever, even though they maybe don't play it anymore.
Right.
If you enjoy it, you enjoy it, and that's that. And I'm glad we're doing it again. And I'm looking forward to getting back into it and doing more tribes next week, hopefully, which I've still not read yet. Looking forward to reading that book too.
Oh, there's some fun stuff in there. You're gonna have you're gonna like. I think that's I haven't really been talking too much about mod tribes, but I think there's a little bit of a monster underneath people's bed if the thing that should obviously be FAQ'd isn't obviously FAQ'd. So like as a person who helps shape people's perspectives, like as a moderator, as a podcaster, are we ready to declare shooting is back? Like, can we officially say it's back now? Do we get to say that?
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, the Cities book, ultimately the Cities book is a shooting book. Whether even if the Soul Screen Bridge gets fixed, it's still a shooting book. And I've got, the Soul Screen Bridge is going to be changed in December. I think I would be very surprised if it's not changed. Whether it's changed enough or not is a different matter. But so because I'm not going to any majors until January, which is the first Games Workshop qualifier, the armies I'm building right now don't have the Soul Screen Bridge in them. So if I get to use it, then great, I'll put it in. But I'm going to play without it for a while. And the army that I'm probably bringing to the Justice series next month is way scarier than the Soul Screen Bridge Hollow Heart list, in my opinion.
Is it Living Cities? Because there's some Living Cities lists I want to see with Luminarchs fucking flanking and shooting. Like, I really want to see that list.
Yeah, just laser beams. No, that army has the same problem as the Soul Screen Bridge army does. It's like, you put your stuff down, you do your thing, and the opposing army either can beat you or it can't.
Okay.
And yes, if you want to go to an event and try to win 5 games on the fact that
a fun trick.
No one can beat you. Then, like, I'm not into lists like that personally, so I don't think that list is particularly good. I think the scarier lists in the book, I think, are the ones that have actually got staying power and shooting. And I think that I will probably be playing one of those. I think there's a reasonably good chance I'll be playing Tempest Eye.
Okay.
I live in cities as a trump card choice, right? So like, if everyone's playing Alpha Strike list or anti-shooting army list, Living City one-ups all those things again by just not deploying on the board.
Yes.
So, you know, if but everything else that Live in the City does, Hallowheart and Tempest Eye do better. You know, like if you're in a matchup where deploying on the board edges doesn't help you, then it's just worse than the other two. And I think until the meta's right for Live in the City, I think the other ones are better.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So yeah, I think likely Tempest Eye for me is going to be what I'll probably be playing first.
So, do you think that the impact of the recent books is mostly good? Like, do you have a reasonable like gauge on where you think the meta is going right now?
Yeah, I think Orcs are a new gatekeeper army.
Okay.
So Orc, this is something, you know, if you listen to the cast for a long time, you'll know about 12 months ago, I was talking about how incredibly ridiculously efficient the Ard Boys are. They were 10 wounds with a 4-up save and a melee attack profile, way better than battle line unit deserves to have. And then they've got this new book, so now they're efficient and they've got everything to support it. And often armies just can't answer 150 wounds of 4+ save models that are good in combat. Particularly since they bring models back, which I also expect to be FAQ'd as well, incidentally. But that's a new gatekeeper army, and that gate keeps shooting armies because they can't kill enough of them to matter. It keeps armies that are quite good in melee but can't take a punch back because they will always get to punch back because they've got so many models. It keeps armies that rely on one linchpin model because the laser beam eyes prophet can kill it. It gatekeeps a lot of stuff. I think that army shapes the meta quite a lot, and there's a ton of people playing it as well. Like everyone's playing that army right now.
That's the thing is like we watched with like LLV stats and stuff. The representation of IJ was insanely high, but they weren't winning.
Yeah, because everyone loves the army. I love the army. If I was a painter and more prolific hobbyist, I'd own that army too. I think they're one of the things that came out in the Age of Sigmarification of the old fantasy that was actually great. You know, turning them from puny guys in no armor, but there's tons of them, into these big giant monstrosities in plate was a fantastic design choice, and I loved them. So a lot of people have got it. A lot of people have played them religiously, even when they were bad. And so now tons of people are playing them. So, and I think it's good because they're mostly just a good old school Warhammer army, just a bunch of guys who want to have a fight.
They just want to run up and smash.
Yeah, they've got some tools, you know. They've got Hand of Gore, which is great. They've got a broken command ability that hopefully will be fixed. But mostly, it's just an army that just wants to go and have a fight with you. And if you're trying to do something clever, which I think a lot of tournament players tend to try to make lists that are too clever, they put those lists, which is good.
Well, that's the thing is like you don't want to. Every time you're making a decision, you could be making the wrong decision and losing. Right, yeah, and so when you're trying to play too clever, you're opening up the like avenues of play a little bit wider than they deserve to be, and also you can make the right decision. And in Age of Sigmar, more than other games I've played, where you make the right decision, you make the correct read, or you do the correct line of play, and the dice betray you, or like there's the 3-dimensional variables, you're an inch off, even though you played it right, like. Things like that happen in Age of Sigmar that, like, when you give yourself extra decisions to make, you give yourself extra opportunities to fail. And the other side of that is like, when you're being clever, some people sometimes forget that you got to try to win a game. You have to, like, have a decision to win the game. Like, I'm going to do this clever trick, but, like, okay, but how does that win you the game? How do you score the objective? How do you become the beatdown?
You talk before about the UK meta maybe being a little bit of ahead of a lot of places.
I believe that.
And I don't think that's like it's necessarily the case that's always the case that the meta is ahead. I think we tend to play more efficiency lists in the UK a lot. So you'll see a lot more of these lists where it's just like, you know, 70 Grimgas Reapers or whatever. And what I see, and this might just be like an observed thing, but I see what comes out a lot of, and you know, like, that happens a lot in Europe as well. So you see a lot of lists come out of like Poland, France, and Germany, for example, that are the same, where there's just, here's a bunch of the most efficient units, and can you beat this or not? And the answer is often no. And what I see coming out a lot of other metas when I look at other countries is lists that look like the guy who's playing them is trying to be too smart.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you see like 10 of this and 10 of this and one of these thrown in like toolbox lists, and those lists can be really good, but when you put them up against 90 Witch Elves or 75 Orc or 70 Phoenix Guard, doesn't matter how clever your list is, you just can't beat the efficiency. And I think that's a thing that we tend to have more in the UK, at least from my observation, and that's what makes it maybe like look like it's a bit harder sometimes.
I don't know that it's harder. It just feels like my take was that like you guys play at a like a more saturated clip because you're closer to the source. You know, the models get out sooner. Not sooner technically, but like you play closer to the source, and so like you're developing the lists in a not like accelerated meta, but just a more saturated meta, to use the terminology from before. And I think that makes you value certain things more in terms of efficiency. That said, I think there's this weird stress left over from some older games about having quote-unquote take-all-comers lists, lists, having a toolbox. And I think that's just an antiquated list-building style. Like, not that it's a bad... I'm not saying, like, go pure filth, pure cheese. This isn't a matter of, like, cheese versus not, or cheese versus fluff. It's like, sometimes the best tool really just is a hammer that hammers everything. You know, like, sometimes the best...
Yeah. I think, as an example, so we're talking about, like, Oryx being, like, maybe, like, a gatekeeper in that way right now. Phoenix Guard do the same thing. Phoenix Guard are actually better at it than Oryx by, 10% in terms of points efficiency. Just putting 70 Phoenix Guard on the board is saying to someone, can you fight my army?
Yes.
Like, whatever you do, I don't really care what it is. Can you fight me in enough time, in time? And if you can fight me, can you do it in such a time as you don't lose on objectives anyway?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we are getting some of those units that are like a little bit hyper efficient now, which is the things that shooting armies hate to face. So there is some meta within that meta there, definitely.
Well, yeah, like IDK is like another example of like just like I'm going to charge you with
perfect gatekeeper.
Yeah, I'm just going to charge you with all this stuff, and you're not going to be able to stop me, and you're not really going to be able to screen it because they all fly, and you can either deal with this or you can't. And it's all on the backs of this efficient unit, and OBR is shaping up to be, can you deal with 80 skeletons that are buffed to shit? I'm gonna drown you in skeletons. Can you deal with it or can't you? Like there's a certain elegance to that, though. I think personally, there's a certain elegance to it.
Yeah. Like they're all, I think like if 80 skeletons are fighting, 80 Witch Elves are fighting, 70 Phoenix Guard are fighting, 75 Oryx, that everyone's on a somewhat level playing field, and that's good. Yeah. So when there's enough armies that are doing it, it's good. And you've got like Bonereapers have got a big disadvantage in their speed, like the comparative lack of models, the fact that they've got no good way to protect their characters, really.
Yeah, they don't have a cheap speed bump.
Yeah, the fact that skeletons only reroll saves against melee and not shooting. There's all these different. Bonereapers is designed well, like from many points of view.
Yeah, like the trade-offs are there. The internal balance is very good, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and it's got a solid internal balance. Cities isn't as bad as my initial reaction was to the internal balance either. Because I begun to realize how some of the units interacted with other units, and like, for instance, Hammerers was one of those ones where like I looked at them and I'm like, these are just worse than this other thing, and then I like realized the buffs that they get to wear, and I'm like, these things are awesome, like like would run Hammerers, like if I didn't. It's funny that you
bring Hammerers up because I don't talk about lists many people in like open places. Normally I just confine it to a few chats with a few people whose opinions I value, and Hammerers has been one of the things we've discussed this week about just how hard they hit and how just dwarfs in general. So I'll tell you. So the list I'm bringing to Just Series next month, if I have it ready in time, is 80 Iron Drakes, 2 Rune Lords, and a Battle Mage and a Hurricaneum in Tempest Eye. That's the list I'm bringing, and that's all dwarfs bar the Battle Mage. That's all actual dispossessed.
Yeah.
Bar the Battle Mage, and that list is dumb. Dumb. It's just insanely dumb, and that's because the Rune Lord buff of getting an extra rend is just incredible.
Mhm.
And if you're doing it on melee, obviously you've got the king who can give +1 attacks as well to the hammers, which makes them incredible. But you say that, you're like, wow, this Rune Lord buff's really dumb. 2+ for an extra rend, and then you realise just like the whole of Bonereapers have got that.
Yes.
And they don't even have to
in
roll a dice.
Petrifex. Yeah, in Petrifex.
Yeah.
Well, that's so I was playfully bantering with somebody on the internet recently, and they're like, "Yeah, well, we'll see how your Bone Daddies do against my 3-up save, sea of monsters." And I'm just like, I don't know. I feel like Ren 2 80 skeletons will deal with that problem pretty handily. Like
Ren 2 80 skeletons, 2s and 2s, re-rolling 1s, and at least one of those will handle it just fine.
Yeah, they'll do just fine. Like
so AOS Coach just said something in chat there about pushing 140 grots around the board, and that on another side topic, I'm also happy with all these new books coming out because none of them promote 150 model builds either, which is great. I like the fact that in cities stuff's generally gone up in cost. Bonereapers stuff's gone up in cost. Like, no one, even at the highest level of competition, wants to push around that many models in a game. Richie hates it. Richie cannot stand the thought of playing goblins for another event. It's just so thoroughly bad.
He was so in on them early too, but I'm kind of, that was my great fear or worry was when I saw that the Bonereapers were on 25 mils. I'm like, I don't want to do 120 models again. I'm like, I don't want to do that. I'm like, 80 is a lot more manageable, than 120, 140. Like, I don't want to.
It's bad for the game, honestly, as well. We've talked about this on the podcast before, but I think you have some level of responsibility into trying to make sure that you end games in a reasonable period of time in Age of Sigmar, but we don't enforce that. We famously don't want chess clock. Games go to time and every TO deals with it differently, etc. Mm-hmm. But I think personally that people have a responsibility to bring armies that can be played in 2.5 hours.
Absolutely.
And I think that it's unfair to yourself in a lot of ways, but certainly to your opponents, to bring those armies a lot of the time. And you feel that as well. If you've played one of these armies, I played a 160 skeleton army last year for a while, never took it to a tournament because I hated it, my opponents hated it, it was a good time for no one. And even though it was a good army, it was this just isn't...
you just get tired.
Yeah,
it's 5 games in a row of doing that. I get to the point where I'm strategically speaking, I should move this 40 skeletons over here. Yeah, I'm not going to.
I position this to maximize the attacks I'm going to get next turn, but I just cannot be bothered moving skeletons again.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing is they have the points have drifted up. There was a moment there, sort of between AOS 1 and AOS 2, where we're just okay, hordes are just becoming by far and away the game is just creeping so far near hordes. I'm like, it's just gonna be 140 models versus 200 models, and they've actually scaled it back. Games Workshop, if you want to sell me extra models, I will buy 2 extra boxes for every army I build, or 3 extra boxes for every army I build, if you keep this trend of us actually playing with fewer models. I will buy the difference in models anyway. Yeah. Just please don't push the game.
If the books have got depth, people will buy every unit in the book in multiples and play all the builds.
Yeah.
You don't need to push people to buy 200 skeletons. You just push people to play everything in the book. Mm-hmm. And it's, and everyone will be happy, which is what they do.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we're all fun and our games get over quickly. And by the way, if like, I shifted to I was on a Death March list near the end there, 3-drop Death March list. It had Vla's the Necromancer, and then it was just all in the battalion. And I played it because the games were over quick one way or another. Like
that was why I played mine, because I turn 1, I killed everyone, and I was like, this is great. This is and if I didn't kill everyone on turn 1, I got to also play a game afterwards.
Yeah, were you moving around and scoring?
Bring it back. Yeah. It was such a fun army to play.
Yeah.
In retrospect, I want to know how many units I've got plans to buy in Cities of Sigmar, but it's a lot. It's a lot of.
You can see it on his face. It's
I mean,
a lot.
I'm buying 90 Dwarden models, 90 dispossessed models. No, there's also Longbeards in that army. I forgot 110 dispossessed models.
See, I actually like Longbeards. I think they're a little bit of an unsung hero for like a single, just like one single battle line.
They're incredible, yeah. So that army is Iron Drakes on 2s rerolling 1s, 2s rerolling 1s.
You can get Ren 2, and you can get to Ren 3, right?
It's like no, Ren 2s is
Ren 2's where it's max out.
They're one base, but they're nuts, and they've got survivability as well, which is also cool. But that's the great thing about the Sigmar book. It's like I can play 90 Phoenix Guard, I can play 90 Iron Drake, I can play 120 humans armed with various different weapons.
And most important,
I can mix and match all those things.
Most importantly, the cod pieces on the humans and the feathers.
Oh, I drew the line somewhere at highlighting someone's junk. That was. I mean, I'm only just sort of learning how to highlight as well, and I'm learning by highlighting someone's junk is not an ideal experience.
You're not down with that.
Yeah, I'm not doing that anymore. It's airbrush all the way now.
Airbrush all the way. Right on.
Area again.
Oh, the dog is free. Sorry about that, everybody wearing headphones. Man, that's actually great. So we've had a trend on every time I talk cities. You got to hobby shame people for how they play their cities armies. How do you feel about people proxying a unit of executioners for great sorters and some of that stuff? How do you feel about that?
We've been discussing this a lot, but not publicly because we don't want to upset anyone. Because it's one of them quite emotive subjects. People should be able to hobby however they want, which I firmly believe. But I think for tournaments, I think you have some responsibility for things to be some level of obvious what they are for your opponent. Mm-hmm. So I think I'm mostly okay with a random model with the Hurricanum star piece stuck to its back being a Hurricanum. I'm okay with that because it uses the Hurricanum. But when people are like, oh, I've got a Bastillodon and I've put an extra big gem on its back, and that's my Hurricanum, I'm less okay with that because it bears no resemblance to the original model. Mm-hmm. I guess I don't feel particularly strongly about it, but I think there's some armies where things bear no resemblance to ones they should be, and I don't think proxying should be allowed whatsoever. I don't think you should be able to say these bleak swords are executioners. That's just proxying. You don't. Okay. You shouldn't. That shouldn't be a thing. Okay. I don't think.
So hardline against proxying. I think I've had to think about it a long time, and I didn't realize I had to until just every Cities episode, people were just the jokes kept coming up. But the main, the place where I've ultimately come down is put an effort at all. And I don't care if you're the best hobbyist in the world, the worst. If you just swap one sword, good enough for me. And that's where I come down on it. Swap ahead a sword. Head swaps are easy. Swap ahead, whatever it is, just because there is a narrative quality where you're no, I want to run the city where they're fully integrated and the elves and the humans and stuff like that. And so I want a unit where I've got bleak swords and human and executioners as my my great sorter unit. And I'm actually kind of okay with that, just as long as
I actually think that's kind of alright. What I don't like is when people are I've got this unit and this is great swords, and I've mixed it up with some executioners and then they've also got a unit of executioners somewhere as well, and then things
Oh.
like gets a bit confusing, or when people are like, yeah, this battle mage conversion is this model, but this battle mage conversion is this model, but they both look like battle mages. Like, I think it's got to be 100% clear for a guy who you've just met because you're at a tournament, who maybe doesn't know the game that well, to be able to 100% pick out what your units are at a glance. I think, like, can I give you an example? I'm going to give you another model on camera.
Yeah.
With apologies to your podcast listeners.
Everyone knows the live show is where it's at. It's their fault.
This is my Phoenix Guard. So this is an Eternal Guard with a Wildwood Ranger head, and he's obviously got the double spear and no shield. So this is what I'm using for Phoenix Guard, and this is because I don't like the Phoenix Guard models. I think the helmets look stupid. I'm not a big fan of them, and I really like the Eternal Guard models, and I wanted to use them in some capacity. And Eternal Guard suck. So I've got some, I guess, sort of backward reasons for doing it, but equally I really wanted to use this model. But I've made this model look like a Phoenix Guard because it's got a double-handed weapon, and it's an elf. It's not got a shield, so it's got all the same weaponry as a Phoenix Guard. So that, to me, makes that an acceptable bash slash conversion.
I think the important thing too is, like, when people look on the table, you're gonna be like, these are my Phoenix Guard, and the only thing that looks like that on the table is gonna be the Phoenix Guard.
I won't have any Eternal Guard or Wildwood Rangers on the table ever. Anyway, so there'll be nothing to be confused about, and there'll be no other units there. And I think it's hard to put a hard and fast rule on it, but I think it's one of them things that you just do as a courtesy to all the opponents you're going to play.
Well, yeah, it's how do you know the difference between art and pornography? I'll know it when I see it. That's kind of how I feel about proxies and conversions. Is like, I'll know when you didn't try when I see it.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, like just do a I don't kit bash you. Well, now who's being the gatekeeper? Like, you kit bashing, disgusting. No, I don't understand it, but I respect it. You want the integrity of the model maintained. I get that.
I would not be unhappy if there was a rule that everyone adopted that said you have to use official models. Like, I wouldn't be against that. Like, I think principle of what it tries to achieve is there, but ultimately, again, this is a hobby and we play for the hobby, so you need to preserve that as well. I just think people who are doing it need to find some middle ground, and the frustrating thing is when you see people who've converted models, they've only done it just because they couldn't be bothered buying the real model. Like, people who are like, I happen to have a whatever, I happen to have a Skaven catapult lying around, so I'm going to convert it into a Hurricanum just cause. Mm-hmm. And even if they do conversion work on it, that's still low effort for me. And some people do that, and that's the bit that ruins it for me. But again, you can't police it, so
you can't police it. It's true. No, I think the fear where, like, this whole discussion that we kind of ended up on this rabbit hole here is that people, as lists win tournaments, people are going to go like, oh yeah, like my Eternal Guard are suddenly Phoenix Guard are suddenly whatever. They just keep shifting it as like they're copying and emulating the newer and better list without a nod toward hobby whatsoever. And I think that's where the problem or the worry.
That's a problem for a lot of. This is a 40k problem that happens. People turn up and 1 week their Space Marines are one chapter, and the next week the same Space Marines are in a different chapter. And I think if I turned up with that model and 1 week said it was an Eternal Guard, then it was a Phoenix Guard, then it was something else, I think that would be against the spirit of what's trying to be accomplished. But for me, that's only going to be a Phoenix Guard.
Yeah.
And I think what Symbol said there, you said like you think that model is on the unacceptable side of the line. I can certainly see that point of view. That's why I used it as an example, actually, because I don't think it's going to be. Some people are going to think it's too much like the Eternal Guard kit, but I think whatever your viewpoint on it is, it's certainly not massively over the line one way or another for anyone, and it wouldn't confuse anyone at a tournament. That's my line for it. Whether you personally like the like what it's doing now.
Right, and like it's difficult to police, and everyone's gonna have their own perspective on this that draws the line in different places, and I just think it's important that we do establish some sort of like rapport within the community to like respect people's hobby, but like also have a certain expectation of effort. I guess is the thing. So it's not just pure 40K. Like suddenly it's just a different thing. Like I think that's my next 40K army is gonna be Lego. Yeah, it's just Lego. This is a Titan now. It's about the same base. Yeah, and I think that there is like a degree of integrity in this community that like I don't even really question it that much, but it's a fun discussion to have. So yeah, we're plowing through all this stuff. So this is not really a decent tangent or segue here, but you talked about the Justice series before, and you kind of skirted on something. Actually, I think Richie brought it up in... Was he talking about Blood and Glory, perhaps? Maybe it wasn't Blood and Glory. He talked about the customer service of the venue. And I thought that was a weird way of phrasing it. Oh, man. Foxfire, thank you so much for that Twitch Prime sub. But it was like... You talked about, like, when you do the Justice GT... you cook people food, give them beers and stuff like that. That like sort of extra mile in towards this notion of customer service at a tournament that we haven't quite pinned down as like that's the term for it. Hospitality maybe is a better one. Having judges that are actually active in the tournament as opposed to just somebody you chase down in a negative context where like you don't want to call a judge because like now I'm not going to get the sports vote and like it's a negative experience. But actually having like instead judges walking about and observing the games, it causes a different sort of experience as opposed to like you only get the judge involved when it's bad, right? Like now the judges are your audio's cut out, my man. Oh boy. So last time this happened, the person just had to drop call and come back. So we'll try that. All right, good night, Joanna. Gonna read Starship Troopers, a very solid book. Thanks for stopping by. Guest services, is that what we're calling it?
Just being a good tournament organizer.
There you are. You're back. Just being a good TO.
Yeah. That's what I'd class it as. I think there are, there's a bunch of different reasons why people run events, right? A lot of people run events because they just love the community, and that's probably the great majority of TOs. Some people run events that are for profit, and they want to maximize the profit, and they are more interested in getting the number of people in than they are about the best event they can. And then some people are somewhere in between, I think. And I think depending on the type of TO, like there's some events in the UK that I think are mostly focused on getting as many players in as they can, rather than being the best event they can. And then you were referring to Bloodshed in the Shires, what Richie talked about, and I think he was happy about it because it's a thing that we focus on very much. Even though we run our event for profit because we run it as the store, we do run it with profit on top. We make no bones about that fact. We also focus on running the best event we can. Like you say, we have those active judges there. We have an incredible venue with air conditioning and free water. We feed and give everyone beers and all that kind of stuff. I think focusing on that stuff is important for really great tournament experiences. Personally.
Well, I think you kind of like skirted on it before. Like some people run it for giving back to the community, which is why I ran my little terrible freaking tournament. And I'm planning on running another one actually next year with a lot more thought and understanding of what I need to do and a lot higher expectations and a lot more effort on my part, starting out a lot sooner than I did before. I think it's at some point like a certain breed of TO, you feel like you wanna give back. And you're like, I want to give back to this community by creating something for the community, and I think that's a feeling a lot of TOs I think have and stuff like that. And like you said, you're pretty open about like your aims. You're doing it as a store, and I think that honesty is a theme I think that you could distill from this episode of Rantcast is you got opinions from a different perspective on how you convert your models for your city's army or whether proxies and so on and so forth, whatever the debate, how we want to frame it. Talking about strong armies versus weak armies, if this is a good unit, if this is a bad unit, holding GW to a certain standard while praising them. It all comes down to just being honest and open, I think, about those things. As long as you are honest in your expectations, you're honest in your proposal, your goals. The thing is somebody who's like gets on stage and they're like, oh yeah, this is a community event for the community, and then like they go behind the scenes and it's just all about their spreadsheets and how much money they make, and they don't give a shit, about the community.
That does happen. There's not many events like that, I don't think. There are some events in the UK even that are largely focused on how much money they can make, which is fine. I would rather people were open about it. Like, I'd rather people say, look, I run this event because I want to make a profit for it. I'd still go to it. I have no problem with people trying to make a profit off events. That's fine. TO big events particularly, TO's a lot of work. You should make some money off it, but not everyone has that level of openness about why they do things, I guess.
Right. And then again, it just, maybe they don't, but I think that's a admirable standard. Like, if you tell me it's just about making... I've said live on Rantcast, if someone wants to sponsor Rantcast, I will gladly sell my principles because I am open to it. But, like, the thing is like, you got to be open and honest and direct and respect like that. I don't understand this stigma around, like, if you're going to make a tournament, it costs money to make a tournament. I think most people know that. And a lot of people are willing to pay money to go to another tournament. But so just don't piss in their mouth and call it rain. Just, be open, be honest.
Get on with it.
Yeah.
Agree.
I'm just happy to build a local community, then tournaments, then global domination. I've said too much. It's okay, Bad Moon. We're on to you. Building local communities is another thing. I know Tristan, and he's in chat right now. He's taking great strides to get local tournaments going rather regularly to help drive interest in Age of Sigmar locally. There's a lot of reasons to run a tournament, and that's a one-dayer. And Tristan, you came late to this discussion, but do go back and watch the VOD where we talk about the importance of one-dayers and how I think we need to stress them a little bit more as a community. There's another reason to help one-dayers out or to give one-dayers more credit is the community building aspect. Getting it going if your tournament scene isn't particularly great, or not tournament scene, if your local gaming store scene isn't that great, a tournament could be a good way to drum up interest and get people playing the game, because once the game is good and once you play it, you go, oh, this is a good game and that is fun that I would like to play, and you remove some of the apprehensions people have towards playing a good game, right?
Yeah. That's it. Just rewind it a little bit back to what you asked me earlier about how did JustPlay get started.
Yeah.
The reason behind that was because for a lot of years, both me and Richie are like organisers and we're doers. We were always the people who were driving people to play more games locally. So, like, Richie ran a 40k league in Liverpool for a long time, when no one else was really doing anything. And because Richie got back into 40k, he wanted to do more, so he organised the league and he had lots of stuff going on. Whereas my version of that was, because I game hopped a lot, whatever game I was playing, I'd get people to play it with me and people would buy it, so we were both always like instigators or catalysts or whatever you want to call it.
Ambassadors.
Yeah, like we were just always making stuff happen, for, I don't want to say selfish reasons, but ultimately because we wanted more people to play against. And that was sort of the driving force behind opening the shop in the end, ultimately, was we want to be able to do this, and we want to do it like as a professional thing. We want to make events happen locally. And that was also part of the reason. It was like, we do this already. We already get people to play games, so let's get them to play as a shop.
You've actually, even just like listening to the podcast between a year ago and now, you've had like a lot of like this sort of JustPlay club featured on the podcast lately, which is like really cool to like see. I know James was on a lot, like a lot in some of the episodes last year and stuff like that. You've had like this almost rotating cast of people from the local shop come on, which has been really cool to see, or well, listen to, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, the scene's been quite strong for a while now. Like we did a slow grow last year, not long after me and Richie had got into Age of Sigmar properly, and there wasn't that many people playing, and we had like 35 people playing in a slow grow league. So the community's been quite strong for a while, but particularly in the last sort of 6 months, we've had a lot more people get into events and playing competitively. So last year it was basically me, Richie, and James going to events, and that was pretty much it. But in the last 6 months, we had JP start playing, and then we had a few other people start playing, and we've gotten them all into the competitive side of things, and we just got a lot more people sort of switched on now, and obviously coming on and guesting on the podcast, which is great because it's helped us get more episodes out when we've been. Like the Cities of Sigmar one wouldn't have happened without Tom, because Richie's too busy to do one to two podcasts every week, and so am I normally. But Tom put all the effort into researching it, even though it wasn't really his thing, and we got some good episodes out there. So
who's the corn player that was on for the Ossiarch Bonereapers episode? Because that person's my first personal hero.
Gene, yeah. Gene, like most of the guys are guys we've known for a long time who've played like tournament 40k or whatever, and who are just sort of like moving over now. But yeah, that was Gene, who's very, very corn inclined.
Tell Gene. Tell Gene. Yeah, go on. Finish.
He likes a good skull.
Yeah, tell Gene. A stranger on the internet really likes him.
I'll tell him. He'll be made up with that.
Yeah, he was. There was a part in your Ossiarch Bonereapers review where he was like jealous of the amount of skulls on one of the sculpts, and I was just like, what a corn player! It was so funny. I think it was the terrain piece. And he's like, oh, there's so many more skulls on the Bone Tithe Nexus than the corn terrain piece, and like he's just like. I thought that was fucking fantastic. I'm like, corn players always be on brand, and they just are. It's fucking fantastic. All right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna step away real quick, but I've had chat queue up a couple questions for you so that there's no dead air. And by chat I mean it looks like it's just Tomb King Tristan.
Okay. Well, welcome everybody to Just Ranting. I'm your host Ian. For the next 5 minutes, we're going to talk about some things that are probably not that ranting. Will I do any conversions in my cities army? Probably not to start with, because I'm like not very hobby oriented. I'm trying. I struggle with time and motivation, and also to some extent, like I've mentioned this on the JustSaying podcast a lot. I have really bad RSI, so I actually struggle with most things with small objects for extended periods of time. So I would like to do some. I'm actually quite proud of my Kit Bashed Phoenix Guard. Outside of whether it's competitively legit or not, I really love the model with the Wildwood Ranger head with the two-handed spear, so I'll probably stick to that for now. But I've got a lot of models to get ready, because I really want to be able to play all these different awesome builds at events next year, and I don't want to be scrambling to paint them or anything, so I probably won't spend much time converting, bar defrancifying all of the Hurricaneums and stuff, I don't think. Response since returning to podcasts has been brilliant, yeah. I think somewhere along the line, not podcasts, 3 months actually made us more popular. Richie kept coming back from tournaments and saying to me that all he gets every tournament is like, when are you going to start podcasting again? Or why is Ian not playing? Which was also quite touching as well, made me want to play again, that people would even bother asking, because anyone can podcast. It was very touching that people wanted to know if I was going to play. So, the response since coming back's been really good, and the episode download numbers have been really good as well. So hopefully we can keep up the hopefully we can keep up the momentum on getting those out back on our old schedule of every 2 weeks. I think that's been really nice. Number one thing I'd like to see adopted by tournaments worldwide, it's a hard one. I think there's lots of small things that could be done better. I think lots of them are just my personal opinion and probably shouldn't really be adopted, even though I would like to see them. I think the main thing I would like to see, I guess, now is probably chess clock. Like, I played with chess clocks a lot when I played Guild Ball, and I think they massively improved the experience because you always know that you're getting a fair game with your opponent, and also if you want to take 5 minutes to make a decision, you don't feel bad taking the time to make that decision, which I really like because you can play fast when you need to play fast. You can stock yourself up time on the clock, and then when you've got something really critical, you can take the time and not feel like you're cheating your opponent and not have your opponent feel bad for you. You know, not have to spend all this time saying sorry to your opponent over and over again, which I really like. So I think they do more than just ensure a fair game, chess clocks, and I think that's something I would love to play. Obviously, it's difficult to implement because of the whose turn is it when you roll and save and throws problem, etc. But you know, implementation's a different question, I guess.
No, we're go ahead.
Yeah, we're just working down the questions. We're up to how do I feel about third-party models that are on theme and look like what you're told they are. I've got slightly different feelings about this because I'm a game store owner, and regardless of what you think about Games Workshop or their business practices or how much money they make or don't make, etc., and you know, when people say if you don't support the game, it'll die, we all know that's not true. If you start buying some third-party models, Games Workshop aren't gonna go bust. Like, so that's also not a valid argument, but it hurts your local stores significantly more than Games Workshop when you play with third-party models. So, like, I give someone free tables to play on every week in my shop. I give them a community that I spend time and money building because the staff put effort into that. I put on monthly tournaments that don't make any money. They're just community building efforts. So stores, and let's face it, most Games Workshop communities are built by stores, independents, not Games Workshop stores, put a lot of money and time into doing all this stuff, and buying third-party models, in my opinion, hurt to them more than they hurt to Games Workshop because you've not bought stuff from them. So that's probably not really the answer you were looking for. I think third-party models are great at the same time. Like, I play Salamanders in 40k, and I don't think that Games Workshop have got a great range for them in terms of like things with dragon scales on, and there's people filling those gaps out there. I just wish that Games Workshop would do it so I could sell those things and people wouldn't have to go elsewhere and spend the money and could keep the money in the local sort of community, etc. So
I mean, that's I mean, your take on the LGS aspect of it, because you are the LGS, right? Like, that's
yeah, exactly, yeah.
You're not the official GW. Are you chapter approved? Is that even a thing anymore? I
don't think that is a thing anymore. No, we're a local. We're just an independent stockist.
Okay.
You know, as well as obviously building the game like we do for a lot of games. But yeah, I think I'm torn as a hobbyist. Third-party stuff is awesome. It fills gaps. It lets you get more variation in your army, all those kind of things. But I think for the health of the game and your stores and all that, I think it's a bad thing.
Well, yeah. So it's. I mean, the point is there's some nuance there. It's a complicated. It's a complicated question.
Yeah. 3D printed models can fuck right off and get in the sea, though. You bring them anywhere near me, they're going out the window.
Funny. That's fucking fantastic.
Like, that's straight up piracy.
All right. So real quick, yeah, you finish off your point if you got more.
No, that was it. I was just gonna answer the AOS tourneys as shit toxic.
Yeah, I was actually gonna bring this up. Yeah, so go ahead and answer. Yeah, no, this is good. Bring it up, or rather, it was brought up by chat. So go on.
I think that I know a lot of 40k players, and they're mostly not shitty and toxic.
They're not as bad as you think. The joke is that they are, by the way. And so I want you to know, if you're sitting in my chat, when I pan 40k or someone like asks me a 40k question, I go, "What's 40k?" It's a meme for me at this point. But I just needed to clarify my stance real quick before you do yours, because it may differ from mine. Yeah. So like, I mean, 40k players are shit, but they're maybe not as shit as you think. No, continue.
Like, 40k engenders a very different kind of game style to AOS. So as much as we might complain about the lack of tight rules in AOS, 40k is on like another level. And when you're playing competitively, you just have to at some point embrace that. If they're not going to fix all their rules, at some point you've got to accept that the way you play that game is finding the most bench shit and playing it. And you're either into that or you're not. Like, there's no point hating it. If you don't like it, you just don't play it, which is why I don't play Tournament 40k, because I want to play a game where I win based on things that I do rather than some loophole that I've found. And also as well, like, yes, there's some toxic 40k players, there's also toxic AOS players, and as a percentage, I'm sure they're probably about the same. 40k is just a lot bigger, so maybe it looks like the community is worse. I think it isn't. I know lots of 40k players, they're great. Same as AOS players.
See, I know lots of 40k. My best friend is a 40k player, so when I make fun of them, it's because I know one who is my best friend. I'm kidding. I don't know a 40k player.
There's some stuff 40k slip too far on, like, excuse me, like their acceptance of proxies, and things like these Marines that are painted like Blood Angels are actually Imperial Fists today. Like, I don't like some of the trends in the way they allow hobby at their events and stuff, but again, most of them are okay with that because the game has so many different builds in it. Would you want to paint an entirely new Space Marine army every time you want to play the best army? No, you wouldn't. So, you know, it just fits the game, really. It's maybe just not for some of us.
Oh, real quick, Foxfire, man, the Sororitas models look fucking insane. I haven't been interested in 40k in a long time, but the new Sisters stuff, welcome. It's really good looking. Like,
I tell you what, I did look at that flying pulpit with the heavy flamers on the bottom, and think that looks like a Luminarch of Hish conversion waiting to happen. Like, I thought that, and then immediately checked myself and thought, no, I'm not going to do that.
So I actually played 40k from like 2nd ed until about 5th ed. So I played Classic, I played Warhammer Fantasy Battle, and then I moved to an area where 40k was the game in town. So I played 40k. I played Space Vampires because, you know, death. And Necrons were just coming out, and I hated them, even though they were supposed to be my Space Death army. So I played Blood Angels instead. And so, like, I played 40k for a while, but, like, I played it because my friends played it and not because it was the thing I wanted to play. Setting's sweet. It's really sweet. And then I quit playing around 5th, 6th ed, and they're on 8th or 9th now? I don't even care. But, like, I haven't been tempted by 40k since 5th, 6th edition until I saw the Sisters of Battle models. I'm just like, oh, that would... I'm like, and then I just like slap my hand like while going to put them in a cart on the GW site. I'm just like, no, bad Andrew. Yeah, I mean they look awesome. So I'm actually really happy for you, Foxfire, because you've got some rad ass. I saw your cosplay coming together on Twitter. So I like, that's got to be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've bought 4 40k armies in the last 2 years, like, with various intentions to play them and or paint them, but it just never actually happened. Like, as much as I want to, and I love the lore and I love the models and all that kind of stuff, it's just not the game for me.
I mean, Space Demons are fucking cool, man. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff there in that setting. But, like, if I have extra time to play a game, I play one of my, like, other games. if I have extra time to like play a war game, I play Age of Sigmar. And like I'm so in love with Age of Sigmar, and I don't gain any extra time in my week as a parent, as a content creator, as someone who's trying to get a writing career off the ground, and as someone who works 60 hours at his regular job that pays the bills. Like I don't have extra time.
It's wishful thinking. Like, it's wishful thinking to think that you're ever going to do these things. But my problem is, I don't just buy like one box of Space Marines and think it's going to be the start of my new army. I buy the whole army and then never start it, and then it just goes in my loft and I never see it again.
Mm-hmm.
It's not ideal. But, you know, the desire to 40k is there, though.
Yeah, I want you to know that I'm going to, chat gang, I'm going to continue to make fun of 40k, but it is just a meme that I make fun of it this way, in the same way that it's a meme that I don't watch anime. Mr. Meph's not a weeb. Local guy. And then we were kind of on peripheral subject, but that thought's gone now. So getting back to this notion of like toxicity and integrity, I do think I have been around competitive gaming my entire life, and maybe your experience is a little bit different, and you've been around gaming your entire life. You've got the LGS perspective, which I think is a really cool perspective, by the way. Like actually owning a gaming store, like your money is literally invested in this, you know. Whereas like if suddenly I sour on gaming, I walk away and I go do something else. You know what I'm saying? Like so I think you've got a really cool, unique perspective in that respect. Like, I do think that there is something when it comes to the Age of Sigmar community that 40k is probably a hyperbole making fun of it for how bad it is and so on and so forth. But like, do you sense something different about the Age of Sigmar community? Like, is the camaraderie fake or real? Like, is it just a budding small community and that's why we don't see all the negativity yet? Like, and
yeah, I think the growing pains are going to hit. I think that as more people who like, there's lots of things that we do on an honor system, like not converting, like painting models properly to some extent in some events that have got lax rules, like ending games properly when you go to time in an honourable way, like knowing you've lost a game even though you might win at dice down, but giving the game to your opponent when you should, because you know you've lost if the game goes on for another 5 minutes. There's a lot of things like that we do honourably as a community, and it only takes a few people coming into the community who just don't want to play by those honourable rules.
The game is growing. They're going to get here.
Yeah, and suddenly everything's broken. And there are a couple of people, and I'm not going to point out individual instances, but there are a couple of people that have come into the game or back into the game recently who've brought some of those, at least in the UK scene, who've brought some of those less desirable things with them. And I think it's only a matter of time until the AOS community gets a little bit of a wake-up call that we can't just keep relying on everyone being nice to keep things fair. You know, it's these things like chess clocks, the arguments keep coming around, but at some point you've got to accept that not everyone wants to play fair. Some people do want to win by any means necessary, and you know, whether that's some 40k players moving over because they decide the tournament scene's
a softer scene.
Yeah, like, so, and not softer because the players are less good, but softer because it's less well controlled, you know, in some ways or whatever. Or maybe it's just some people who want to play it who aren't really interested in hobby whatsoever. They just want to play something they can win at, and they don't care by what vector they do that. You know, I think so. And you know, maybe that will never happen. But I think it's already starting to happen. But I think as a community we tend to deny that bad things are happening. Mm-hmm. Like when people cheat, we tend to jump to the defense of people who cheat as a community, for example. And this isn't really an AOS thing, this is more a 40k thing, but there's people who've been actually caught on camera cheating, or people who are actually known to time wasting, who've admitted to time wasting to win games, who do it all the time, and they're still allowed to go and play tournaments, because no one wants to be the guy who says, you can't come to my event, you're a cheat. No one wants to do it, and people want to say, well, maybe he's not a cheat, and it's like, but the guy cheats at every event he goes to. Every event has to put a judge next to his table for the whole event because he's a cheat. Why are we not just saying you can't come and play anymore? You're not wanted.
See, that's I think AOS players and I want to do a freaking like psychographic profile or a sociological study on the AOS player.
Yeah. I know what you're getting at. It seems to be better, and I agree with you that it is, but it's not going to. We can't just take it for granted that it's going to be.
The fear is the wolf in sheep's clothing, right? Like there's because we for the most part, I mean, in a full going on 2 years of tournaments, about a tournament a month, a tournament every other month, 2-dayer, and then some local stuff. Like I have had 2, like quote unquote that guys, okay, 2, which as someone who played Magic the Gathering and made enough money playing Magic the Gathering, not even with top 8s, just like top 20s and shit, selling packs and crap. Like, like I was used to playing that guy 8 rounds.
Yeah.
You know, like, so like I have like this, like, I'm a little jaded because like it took me a year to like, I'm not sure if you're a that guy or like fake nice, and it took me a long time to disarm my Magic skepticism. That I had. But then now I feel super protective of this community because I don't want the me's that I could have been coming over from Magic the Gathering to fucking show up here and victimize.
And that's why we've always been so big on advocating things like tightening up rules and things like chess clocks and all that, because this community does seem to want to pretend that it never happens, and even if you've never seen it or you're not sure who it is, to say that no one cheats ever at any given tournament is obviously just silly. And it would be nice to be like future-proofed against that stuff before it happens, because again, you pay a lot of money to go to a tournament and you don't want non-games, whether they're because you're playing against the Hallowheart army or whether because you play against someone who cheats. And you don't want to have that non-game. You don't want someone's weekend and money they've spent have to be ruined before someone finally gets up and says, look, we can't have this anymore. You can just fix it before it ever happens with rules, and it's the simplest thing in the world to do.
Well, see, and you said something there, and I'm you said something there that I think is kind of important. The difference between a nice guy who doesn't know what's going on and somebody who's cheating but pretending to be nice is virtually impossible to detect.
Yeah.
You know? Like, oh man, shit, dude, I didn't know they didn't have Rend 1. I thought they always had Rend 1. You know, like, you don't know if people are forgetting the rules. And there are so many rules in this game, and we do forget them. Which is why I like something like AOS Reminders that builds parity of like having all your rules on one piece of paper that you take to a tournament and then you check the script. I like TOs that are TOs that have judges that are actively walking around the tables with a literal binder of the FAQs under their arm, like I like things like that where like you take out the gray areas so that you can go like, no, this is what the rule is, man. Like, oh no, I know you got it wrong, man, but like here's the rule, cool, and then you move on. Yeah. Which is why there is a lot of appeal in pulling away the sports score from your tournament points, because then you don't have to worry if someone's being fake nice for the sports score. You just worry about playing the game. There's a lot of appeal in that. But on the other hand, like I'm also kind of like falling in love with this tournament scene as that guy who feels like he's found the greener pasture from all the other competitive stuff that really does resonate with me. And so like I love what you're saying, and I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just offering sort of like a counter perspective here as somebody who's got some eye towards journalism. Like the fear is that you start doing some of that stuff and then you create a monster where there wasn't one before and you legitimize it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people obviously have that fear that you don't want things to become like too serious or something like that, which is fair. But I'm just pragmatic and honest all the time, and I don't want to be causing trouble or anything like that. But there are people who cheat. Like we see it all the time. We see it at multiple tournaments. There was a tournament I was at where a guy playing a army made a mistake in the way his army worked in game one. Was told how his army worked, was told that he had the rule wrong, and proceeded to make the same mistake in inverted commas in game two. And then proceeded to make the same mistake in game three, and he kept making the same mistake in inverted commas over and over again because his opponents kept coming and telling me, because I was there and I was judging, and opponents kept coming and saying to me, is this how this works? And I said no. And even after the guy had been told by the guy who was judging the tournament how his army worked, he still played the rule the same purposefully incorrect way.
Well, that's where you need like a demerit system where like you get a mark or something and then you get hit for it.
And that's what happens at Magic tournaments, right? Like you make them, you have a game state or a game rule violation, you just get a mark, and because most of the time it
is incidental, yeah.
And then, but if you're doing it multiple times in the same event, there's a pattern. I can't recall a time a player has been removed from a Warhammer event that I'm aware of, but I can certainly recall plenty of times when I think someone should have been. So but again, we're probably making too much of it. It's not a big problem. It's a small one that just needs to be dealt with.
It's a small one in some sense. So, and here's like a radical idea. Do you think that people like you and me sort of shaping the conversations around Age of Sigmar, like all the content creators, all the ambassadors for the game, do you think we're strong enough as community fixtures to help maintain the game state, maintain this community? We have a bunch of bad eggs trying to come in, but then you have a bunch of people leading by example. Yeah, I know it's a little bit more laissez-faire than put something in rules and it's concrete and then it works. This is something I constantly talk about, but like I've got to play devil's advocate here a little bit. Well, not even devil's advocate. I think there's some credence to the opinion. Do you think that like having a strong backbone of ambassadors for the game, a strong backbone of regulars at a tournament scene and stuff like that is a source of positivity to help drive the community?
It's definitely a good thing. I don't think it's necessarily enough. I mean, we advocated a bunch of changes last year when we were very new. Things like strength of schedule, things like less soft scores, and all those things have happened. So I definitely think if you've a strong enough voice with good arguments, you can affect some change. But can you affect change if, like, as an example, if there's a person who is a prolific cheat, who is a very well-known and loved community member, is anyone's voice strong enough to fix that problem? Like, if that was an issue, I'm not saying it is.
Well, I mean, there's the thing is, like, now you have this person who's more powerful than your voice, and so now
it's just someone's word against someone else's word, and that guy could cheat because we think he's great, etc. So I think it's always good to have people who are strong voices and respected, and people should definitely take viewpoints from those people. But I think some of these particular cases, particularly around like emotive issues like cheating, require like everyone to be involved.
Yeah. So, like, I've noticed. So we've got a like a local case. It's got its own hashtag and it comes up every now and then in our debates. It's hashtag never 5get. For the tournament, and I'll explain why it's never 5get. So there's a tournament we had locally, and there's a burden of terrain at every tournament. To alleviate the burden of terrain, everyone was told to bring 5 pieces of terrain. Right? And I think a mistake of the pack was the terrain using the terrain rules you brought.
Yeah.
It should just be generic terrain that you place on the table and you roll for it like normal. But, like, that's neither here nor there. You've created a system, and now people get to game the system. So we had a person bring Sigmarite mausoleums, 5 of them.
Yeah.
Running the cookie cutter Nagash list at the time. Nagash, 60 Grimghast Reapers. Dogs or whatever. And then he quote unquote hobbied them up to be like 4 times the size of a regular Sigmarite mausoleum.
Yeah, yeah.
And like, this person has been lambasted for a calendar year with this never 5get hashtag. They don't do that shit anymore. Because the community doesn't want that type of cheat around this part.
Yeah.
You know, like, the reputation of a cheater, assuming that you're not a community darling already with a voice and yada yada yada, but like, some of those, the 40k player shows up to try to, you know, take advantage of all the sheep, and they're the wolf in sheep's clothing and whatever. Like, they show up because they think we're a soft meta. That guy gets harangued by the existing community for being... I'm not advocating for gatekeeping, because I think in general, like, you don't want to, like, have a bunch of, like, a population of a tournament scene decide who's acceptable and who's not acceptable for playing the game, which is why rules are fucking important, because you write rules and there's no gray area and no judgment calls. Yeah. But the point is, like, there is something to this Age of Sigmar community sort of policing itself. You know, TOs all write their own packs to shape the way that the game is played. Like, gamers are very vocal about what they think is acceptable, and barring the outlier of like some community darling metaphoric person that, who knows, like, having as big a voice as all the like other content creators or all the other community darlings, barring that, you do kind of dilute that pool of shitlords coming over from 40k, I guess, is to put a point on it.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. I think it's just one of those things, and there's probably never gonna be a hard and fast answer to it. If there can't be, I think, like, I just think it's one of those things that we need to just be a bit more grown up about, accepting that it does happen.
Yes.
And grown up about being able to have a reasonable conversation about it when it does happen, without the person instigating the conversation being, you know, castigated for it. Like, yeah, as an example, you get microcosms of this at tournaments. No one wants to call a judge over at a tournament or a TO or whatever and say,
real quick,
I think my opponent's cheating.
Real quick, I think there's a stigma existing to calling a judge in Age of Sigmar that doesn't exist in other events.
Period. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, calling a judge shouldn't be a negative thing in Age of Sigmar, because we have that stupid roll a die to decide goddamn rule. It's dumb. That needs to go away. I'm sorry, guys. I love this game, but like, that's the thing I think I have a problem with that fundamentally, because you can be a cheater and know your rule is wrong, and then just be like, oh, I didn't know it worked that way. Well, no, it doesn't work that way. Well, I didn't know it worked that way. Like, roll a die, and you have a 50% chance of cheating now? Like, fuck that. Like, so, but then nobody wants to call over a judge, or because now you're going to hit my sports vote, or I don't want to be a bad part of the community because I love this community. Even if you take away sports from tournament points, you still don't want to be that guy in the community, because we're going to make a hashtag about you and make fun of you on the internet. Like, you know, like, we need to shift the culture a little bit on how we view judging at tournaments is a big point. No, continue with your side of it. So I think that there's this sort of separate issue in this broader...
I mean, I think it really just comes down to the same thing, that we just need to be grown up and appreciate that it doesn't necessarily mean someone is it's not insulting for someone to call a judge, and I think that the likelihood is, if someone calls a judge because they think there's something going on that's dodgy, they've probably got a good reason for thinking it in the first place, so you don't need to compound that by making them feel bad, I guess, is the thing. Like, there's twice this year I've had messages off people, mostly since I judged the Games Workshop heat, because people think I'm somehow involved, which I'm not at all. But I've had messages of people saying, this happened at a Games Workshop heat, what do I do about it? And, you know, obviously I've said, talk to Games Workshop, it's nothing to do with me. But it's people having negative play experiences, whether it was cheating or not, and not feeling like they can bring them up at the event. And, you know, I'm sure in at least one of those cases it was cheating. But again, we're not grown up enough as a community to even accept that it happens, let alone have conversations about how we deal with it.
Right, right. And so, like, be a little... be a little bit more grown up. Sorry, I just handed dusted someone in chat for making fun of Nagash.
I like it.
No, I think there's something to it. Like, and part of that, like I said, the stigma of calling a judge, the stigma of cheating unintentionally. And one thing Magic does is, like, both, quote unquote, both players are responsible for maintaining the integrity of the game state.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that's something that, so, like, you're both accountable to the rules on both sides of the deck.
Yeah, you should both know how all the things work. And
Age of Sigmar, I mean, maybe that's a little impractical because there's so many fucking books, and I'm not gonna buy your 4 books and, you know, play your fucking army for you. And I guess at a certain level of competition, it is okay to expect that level of mastery, but, like, we don't have, like, a tiered or a ranked system in Age of Sigmar. You've got a fun sort of dispersion of the types of players that show up at this event. That's one of the things that makes it kind of great, is that you do get that, like, that spectrum of the demographic showing up to this event. And if you're I always say that competitive players are going to sort themselves out on the top tables. They're going to find each other on the top tables. They're going to play each other at the top tables. So what if, like, instead of, and just using your chess clocks examples as an example, what if instead of chess clocks ubiquitously enforced across the game of Age of Sigmar, it's just the top tables? You know, the top. Look at the clip of it. What if it's something like, can you do a tiered system with this rule, with your rules that like allow some of that community driven, the community first, you know, approach to the game that we love, but then also get some, like, hard lines and grown up stuff.
So I've thought about this in case we ever decided to introduce chess clocks at one of our events, and I think that it's unfair, or I think that it's wrong to say only top players want to have fair games, because first of all,
that's a fair point. That's a fair point.
You can be playing for a 3 and you can be a top player playing for a 3 and 2, because that happens sometimes. But equally,
happened to Richie on your meta discussion. He on his gits.
You know, it happens. You lose games, but also, I don't know anywhere where it says that players who are playing on the lower tables don't also want a fair game. You know, and you might never hear those people talk, because they don't tend to be the people who are on podcasts talking about events and reviewing their tournaments.
You know what? I'm going to go ahead and start inviting 1 and 4 players onto RantCast as a rule, just to get their perspective.
Yeah, like, I mean, those players are no less valid than someone who's on 5-0. They just get talked about less. So there's plenty of people who I've had come up to me after games. There was one at the Justice series, in fact, who had a really shitty 5th game because he didn't like the way his opponent was playing the game, and that was on table, you know, the bottom 10 in the room or something. And, you know, your games and your experiences don't go away just because you're not on the top table. So I think if I was to introduce chess clock, my rule would be if one player wants a chess clock, both players use chess clock. So if both players agree not to use it because you don't want to play that type of game, then fine. But if one player says, I want to use it, both people have to use it. And then, you know, it's got that out if you just want to play a fun game or you don't care. But if one player feels like they need it for whatever reason, they don't need to justify it, you just use the clock.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, and Andrew Yells is in my chat here. He's actually played competitive chess. And he's actually got a video up on YouTube about chess clocks and implementing them and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. And he's thought about it. He's not a master level player, but he's certainly he would whoop both of our asses in chess. So yeah, and minimum pants here in chat. I play almost exclusively on low tables. We do in fact want fair games.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, although he does have a best death trophy, so there's that. No, it's I mean that's a fair point. Is like I guess modulating it based on where you are in the tournament does sort of in a weird way sort of polarize good players versus bad players, and you don't want to draw lines like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely. Yeah. I like chess clock implementation. Now we seem to be on that subject is definitely not an easy thing, but I think for me personally, chess clocks solve more problems than they create, even though implementing them is difficult. And does come with some problems because the game doesn't really support the back and forth nature of a chess clock being used properly. It is still better than playing for 2.5 hours and losing because your opponent wants to put dice down, knowing that they win now, but not in 3 minutes.
So here's a wacky idea. What if instead of do you think there's an alternate solution than chess clocks?
I, as a man of science, I 100% believe that there is, but I don't know what it is.
So what if it's something like I've seen proposals in packs like you get your sports votes aren't sports votes, it's rounds completed. If you don't complete the
No,
round,
that I hate all of those solutions are terrible.
okay?
For a simple reason that if I go to a tournament and don't complete a game because I play a slow opponent, I get penalized through no fault of my own. Like, there was a lot of talk, and it actually happened at FaceTime last year, where they looked at how many games that had gone to 5 turns. But, like, number one, Age of Sigmar is not a 5 turn game a lot of the time. It's decided on turn 3, yeah, and, like, particularly with the rise of Alpha Strike armies, the game starts on turn 1 like people are fighting. You know,
Which is
not
cool.
like everyone. Yeah, it is. It's fine. Yeah, but therefore the game's decided on turn 3. So if the game times out on turn 3, it may have still only timed out 10 minutes before its end.
It gets a lot faster at the end of Age of Sigmar, which is something people.
Turn 3 sounds worse than it is. So I don't think you can categorize it on saying it should be exactly 5 turns for one, but second, I just think that I've been to plenty of tournaments where I've played 2 games where I've not finished because my opponent was slow. And it's even worse when you're the guy playing 160 skeletons, but you've played perfectly fast and your opponents are a bit slow. You're the guy that gets blamed. And I would love to have videos of the games and be able to say, look, actually, he took up a lot more of the clock than I did because he was just a slower player. I play my army fine, but you get blamed for having more models. So I don't think those things are in any way scientific. You should not be penalized for what may have been completely out of your control.
Fair enough. So here, what about some sort of ruling where you gotta talk through the turns as though it's 5 if it's dice down?
So we do that at our events, and we've talked about it before.
Here's the thing: is like before you answer, I wanna kind of preface this a little bit. Dice down doesn't have a universal meaning across tournaments, and I think we need to address that personally. Dice down in some respect. So there's a big meme. I have a 100% win rate against hosts of Warhammer Weekly. It's true. I have beaten them with Beasts of Chaos against Slanesh and Night Haunt. It was a doubles event. It was at Holy Havoc. I talk about it a little bit. The thing is that game ended about turn 3. It ended with us winning a single point, and we talked through sort of the remainder of the next turn. And as we were beginning to talk, like Steve Herner came over, he's like, dice down, and like I felt like I got yelled at by Dad, and like they were like, okay, I guess we score, and like boom. But like had that game gone 2 more turns, we had like 4 models left on the table. Like they kill us and then they score the table objective for 2 more turns, ending in a draw rather than a pure win one way or another. It was like we won 3-2, and it would have been 3-3. if
Yeah,
we had talked through it. What I and part of it was like in that moment, like I'm just like going into ABC mode, like okay, ABC, now we got to do the thing, we got to fill out the pack and so on and so forth. I've been told it's dice down. I've been told it's dice down. Like we don't have a universal understanding of dice down. Does dice down mean you finish out if you're in the middle of 4? Do you finish your turn and that's it? Do you stop right there, or does the other person finish?
Dice down comes from War Machine, and when dice down gets called, that's actually what it means. You put your dice down, you stop playing. That's it. Mm-hmm. It's literally the game state happens as of at that second who the winner is.
So if I may, that's coming from a different game in our game.
It is, yeah. It's like it's just an much like tiebreakers. There is no good way to decide the winner of a game that is finished. That's all that it comes down to. There is no good way of doing this, so we're stuck with what we think the best way of doing it. And if that way is just saying we stop immediately, or we stop immediately and count up the points as if this was an end of the turn or whatever, then whatever your arbitrary way is, you pick one and you put it in your pack. Well, and I think the worst thing is that packs never want to establish it. So you may go to an event and, halfway through a game in your head, like I am thinking, if this game goes to time, I'm going to run through it to turn 5. And if I'm losing, I'm going to give it to my opponent because that's the honourable thing to do. But my opponent's thinking, if this gets close to time and I'm ahead on the clock, but I'm losing, I'm going to play for 5 minutes so that I win at dice down.
Yeah.
And, really, you're just asking the TO to make a decision because he's not put it in the pack how he's going to call a game at the time. He's going to leave it to players, and players mostly agree. Maybe it's through one of them having a bigger force of personality than the other, but players generally come to an agreement. But when the players cannot come to an agreement, what do you do? It's not in the pack. What do you do?
And here's the thing, and this is where I'm positing we don't have a common lexicon currently established for dice down as a community. This is the one thing I've noticed at every tournament I've gone to. It's not in the pack like you say, and my dice down versus your dice down, and this is the royal my versus the royal yours, is we don't have a common lexicon per se. For me, dice down means if I'm in my turn on turn 4 or whatever, I'm going to let you play out your turn or at least talk through your turn, and then we're going to end the round or end the game because we can't speculate 2 turns ahead. We don't know about the priority roll for 5 and what happens if you go at the top of 5 and then I go at the bottom of 5. There's enough variables. If I'm close to tabled, that's a different scenario. I can go, I know what tabled looks like in turn 5. This is what you do. You know what I'm saying?
But the problem is when you're close to tabled, but you're ahead by 1 point, and you refuse to give me the game.
Now I get to win.
Then you get to win.
But I get to win.
Say that I'm no more right than you are. So
that's,
I think
exactly.
The way we do it, where we have a judge get involved and help the players come to a conclusion, and generally 95 times out of 100, the conclusion is obvious. Generally, but there are instances when it certainly isn't. We get involved as judges and try to make the players come to a decision on how the game is most likely to end, because we think that's the best way of doing it, and I think that is the best way of doing it personally, but not everyone agrees. I would just like to see packs just clearly outline how you resolve a game that's gone to time. And again, get off this, everyone's honourable, it's all going to be nice, because they're not. It doesn't always come like that, especially in the heat of the moment in the last game of the tournament for the win. People suddenly lose their morals a lot of the time. And it would be nice to just have those things in a pack, I reckon.
I don't even think it comes down to morals. Sometimes you're flustered and you're playing for the win. You're playing to all of your outs, whatever your out may be. Even you probably don't watch American football, but even great quarterbacks don't if they have a 3-point lead, they don't go for another touchdown. They'll kneel out the clock if they can do it. Whatever the system is, you're going to play that system.
Yeah, it's human nature is to do that. A lot of the time.
But
which is why rules.
I think you got to put it in the tournament pack. I think, having like play out the end of the turn, I think is at least the very minimum, and then have a judge reassess if you have additional rounds left. Have them, if you have additional battle rounds left, have a judge come over and assist. And so, like, basically, we need to start writing our rounds even longer for Dice Down, which would be terrible. Or write them shorter, by the way. You can go that way. And then leave the 30-minute buffer as the playing out the last turn. And so what you do is you call Dice Down at the 2-hour mark, and then Dice Down means play out the remaining turn and then discuss. Yeah, or play out the remaining battle round. Like, the point is like, we need to come to a consensus because there isn't a current lexicon for what Dice Down means. And even Dice Down comes from a different game. That's not even ours.
Yeah. I think, I don't know whether that's one of the things you will ever get people to agree on necessarily, but it's definitely a thing that people need to codify. Much like you need to know how many points you get for a win versus a draw versus a loss, you need to know how you resolve that situation, because it happens all the time.
Yes.
Not like it's a rare situation that a game goes to time. It happens all the time because we don't have enough time to play the game. Well,
yeah, time is a huge constraint for this, and like, we want to play the game, and like, with our game against Warhammer Weekly, Vincent, Tom, me and Haywo, like, we were just talking. We were talking the whole time. It was two guys we know on the internet, we create content together, we hang out. And, like, we haven't played a physical game together with each other, ever.
Yeah.
And suddenly we're playing, and so now we're just, like, fucking talking. We get 3 turns in, and then it's like, okay, 15 minutes left, and like, oh shit, we gotta fucking fast forward through our turns now. And, like, we played, like, Halo and I played super cagey. I killed my own heroes because one of the objectives was they had to have a specific battle line unit do an amount of damage. And my battle line unit had already done all of its damage, but was dead. And his battle line unit, I'm like, in order to catch my battle line unit on damage for the secondary, I'm going to drop a Wildfire Taurus on my own unit and kill it so he can't do enough wounds to catch up. And, like, starting to play really cagey and kind of, like, steal the game at the end. But, like, that's the thing is, like, we went into fast forward mode, we're playing, yada yada. Neither of us were slow playing in that situation, but you still end up, it happened, like you said, it happens all the time. We don't have enough time to play all the games, and we need a system to... We need a common... I call it a common lexicon. We need a common understanding of what Dice Down even means. Whether you put it in your pack. It doesn't need to be a tournament-wide, everybody's thing. But I would just like to start seeing it in packs.
Even if it's a bad one, even that it's one I disagree with and think is an awful decision, I would still rather it get done. It's better than no decision. Like, that's what I come down on.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with talking out outcomes either, and then being like, okay, this is how this would go. Well, I mean, if I kill this hero, I can get my secondary. Well, roll it, see if you can kill it with the thing you've got on the table. Like, stuff like that happens, and I think that's legitimate.
Yeah, that's the bet. Given the constraints within which we play this game, that is the most reasonable way to work it out, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So... I can, I've got a rapid-fire question segment here if you want to wrap this up. Or if you're game for more ranting, just ranting, we can continue with some of these rabbit holes I've got.
Well, are we past Joel's record now? I think we are, aren't we?
No.
3.5 hours, right?
No, he's 4 hours and 20-some minutes.
Yeah, I don't think I can manage that with babies and the likely time they will wake up soon.
Yeah.
So I probably can't manage that.
All right, so I'll have you back on at some point because this has been...
We'll just marathon one.
We'll go the 6. I'm putting a hard cap, by the way, on RantCast at 6 hours. I will not record a RantCast over 6 hours. Like
It'll be a long time.
I refuse, unless it's like just pure content. So I've got like one thing I want to revisit real quick, and then I'll do my rapid fire questions here for you. The one thing I wanted to revisit was this notion of the LGS, which is I don't know if you know this, but you're changing people's lives by running an LGS. I'm a abused kid. Like my dad left before I was born. My mom was bipolar, self-medicated with all kinds of drugs. She lost custody of me. I went to 6 different high schools, got bounced all around. If I didn't have an LGS to go to, I wouldn't exist as the kind of awesome dude I am now. You know? And so, like, I just wanted to say, like, I highly value the LGS, and I know we're moving towards the digital age. The physical tabletop is maybe melting away a little bit. We play D&D on Roll20 these days. We Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering Arena. It's really easy to play those and lose a sense of community and not go to that LGS as like a literal sanctuary. So I just wanted to say, like, I think LGSs are literal sanctuaries and bastions of hope for like little like lost boys like I once was, lost boys and girls like I once was, and so like that's awesome. I think it's really cool that you went into the LGS thing. Are you aware that you're doing like actually kind of great service by being an LGS? Like, I know it's business and money and tournaments and getting people into gaming and stuff, but do you know you're actually like affecting people's lives with this?
Yeah, I do. And it's like anytime you build, I mean, like we're a business and we're trying to make some money out of it. If that was our only motivator, opening a game shop wouldn't have been the thing that we did, right? We would have done basically anything else if we actually wanted to make a significant amount of money than open a game shop.
Yeah, you could have started a vape store or something, right?
Literally anything, yeah. Literally anything makes more money than running a game shop. Yeah. But, a lot of it's for the community, and anytime you build community, you help people either in some small way just by being a part of something important to people, or in a big way. And, case in point, I mentioned before my son's autistic, so that's a subject that's quite close to my heart. And we've got people who come into the shop. We've got one person in particular who's autistic, who's pretty much only real experience with like a large group of people and playing with people is coming into the shop to play Magic. Mm-hmm. And outside of the shop actually doesn't really get involved with large groups of people. In the shop, runs tournaments, and shouts at big groups of people with no issue. And there's other people that have come to me and just say, that if it wasn't for your shop, even though we've only been open for a few years, if it wasn't for your shop, I'd still be sitting at home playing World of Warcraft on my own. But I came out, I learned to play Magic, or whatever, and met some friends, and now I come and do stuff a few times a week. So it really is, with any community centre, whether it's a shop or otherwise, I think it is good, and I am thankful of the fact that I can do that while also doing something that I love at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I think it's great to be able to. So yeah, I'm very, very happy for it, I guess.
All right, that's awesome. So a couple quick questions here. There's a bit of a point of contention here in America currently going on whether or not to call Ossiarch Bonereapers Bone Daddies or not. What is the you are the entire voice of the UK now, so I want you to know you represent that whole area. You're the deciding factor on whether or not that section of the world is calling them Bone Daddies, Ossiarch Bonereapers, OBR, or something else that maybe you've thought of.
I will never call them Bone Daddies ever. As long as I live, I will never call them Bone Daddies. Like, they're just Bone Reapers for me. Like, maybe I'm just really boring, but they're never getting called Bone Daddies.
They're never getting called Bone Daddies. All right.
I don't know where that come from first. Like, I don't know whether it was like Rob and Honest Wargamer was first in with the Bone Daddies. I think it was. And I vaguely remember saying when he was up here for Just a Series that I wish he'd never said it, because I hate it. Like, it's not for me. I am not the target audience for that arm. It is just Bone Reapers.
Oh, man. So, like, there you have it. Officially, the stance from the UK is they are not Bone Daddies. What the fuck is quid?
It means a pound.
Okay, so, like, it's the same amount of syllables. So, like, if something is 20 quid, it is 20 pounds, or 20 pound.
Yeah, but you have these like long syllables and short syllables, right? So pound is a longer word to say than quid.
Fair
Uh,
enough.
I don't know the etymology of the word. Maybe there's a better reason than that. But I say quid. Like I'm from Liverpool, so we say quid instead of pound all the time.
Okay.
But it is quicker to say by a very small amount.
So you got to save that millisecond when you say quid.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And then I saw a recent article on the internet, and I didn't realize it, but I don't know the proper way to make tea. Apparently, your PM doesn't. But like, what is the proper way to make tea?
Like, I mean, this even gets argued internally among the British.
Okay.
Like, like it's. I think the proper way to make like an original Old English tea, where you are steeping a tea bag in boiling water for a minimum of 3 to 7 minutes, depending on what book you read about it, could be debated. I think the proper way to make tea, like a good modern cup of tea, really depends, like where you live.
Okay.
Like if you're from somewhere that's like a good northern, like northern in Britain is kind of like a euphemism for working class because everyone in the south is posh and rich, and everyone in the north where I live is not rich and has real hard working jobs. We would make what we call like a builder's tea, where you just like get the tea bag, you just throw it in, the milk and the water, whatever order, it doesn't really matter. As long as it's strong and it tastes like tea, it's tea.
Okay.
Like if you ask Richie how he likes his tea, he'll say, I don't fucking care. Just make me a cup of tea.
Okay.
Whereas some people like are sensitive to the number of grains of fucking sugar you've put in their cup. It's like unbelievable how much it varies, even internally to our nation. What the answer to that is. Like I like a lot of milk in my tea. I really like milk anyway, but I really like a lot of milk, like what most people would consider far too much milk. So, being a very manly man, considered unmanly to have that amount of milk in your tea because your tea is not strong enough. But that's just how I have my tea, and anyone who wants to debate that with me can get in. Quite frankly,
just at him at what's your Twitter handle again?
At JustPlay_Ian hot tea tip.
Hot tea tips. Hashtag
really
hot tea tips. There you go.
Yeah.
But there is a wrong way to make tea apparently. Like that's for certain.
Yeah, I mean, generally putting milk in before hot water is pretty wrong. Some people do it, but most people would agree that that's wrong. Leaving the tea bag in for like less than 30 seconds probably generally also considered wrong as well.
Because you're not going to get strong enough.
Some very strong guidelines in there, the kind of thing that we need to solve cheating, for example.
Right.
Strong guidelines. Tea, Age of Sigmar, basically the same subject.
Basically the same subject. I think a lot of the parallels are there between the rules we could write for what is good tea and what is good rules for Age of Sigmar.
So Tristan's just asked how I feel about oat milk. I really like oat milk. I really like all of the various different milks we have. Like I think they're all delicious. But oat milk in tea is wrong because it's got bits in. And you don't want to see little bits floating around your cup of tea. I mean, that's just like another level of wrong. Oat milk is drinking on its own.
Fair enough. So we're at the point of the show where you shamelessly promote yourself and anything else you wish to promote.
Brilliant. Well, my name's Ian. I run JustPlay Games in the UK. Our website is justplaygames.uk. We sell Games Workshop products and lots of other hobby products as well. If you would like to try out a new store and you live in the UK or the EU, feel free to order some stuff from us. We have very good customer service, very lovely staff. We create lots of content as well, so it's also a great way of supporting that. And also listen to our podcast, which is the JustSaying podcast, which is in theory a wargaming podcast, but really just an Age of Sigmar podcast. Yeah, so we have episodes every 2 weeks, so give us a listen on there as well. I think that's probably all the shameless stuff.
All right, man. Thank you so much for joining me, and again, thanks for you. Kind of, I woke up this morning with a black cloud over me, and then I saw that DM like, hey, I could probably fit you in today, and so that just it changed the complexion of my entire day. So thank you so much for joining me. Let's do this again sometime. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you're welcome. I was having withdrawal today because we recorded the podcast this week from the amount of podcasts we've done recently. So I was like, I need to talk about Age of Sigmar with someone. That seemed to fit.
That's what it was. There's the withdrawal because you were cranking out so much content at such a rapid clip. You're like, I need to record another podcast, but I can't. Like everyone's gonna go to sleep and go home today, but today's the day. All right.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that was great. So yeah, thank you again, Ian. And everybody do check out JustSaying podcast. It's absolutely one of my favorite. Again, it's one of those ones that always jumps my queue, and I'm falling behind because they've been just on a tear with content this last month or so. Welcome back from your light hiatus. I look forward to more of your shows.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me as well.
Good night, everybody in chat gang. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for all the questions. Good night.